All right, says we're live. I'm gonna just
All
tweet out.
right.
I'm gonna tweet out the link real quick as people join us, and then I'll do introductions. Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here, and today I have two guests. You may know them as POTUSThump, One Base Bunny, our friend Timothy Lynn, and Cody Fernandez, the creator of Jack Irons, the Steel Cowboy. Why don't you, Cody? Why don't you start? Say hi to everyone.
Well, hey everybody, how you doing? Hope you're doing well.
And thank you for joining us too.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right. So if you are just joining us live on the interwebs, we are moving the needle for Jack Irons, the Steel Cowboy. There is a link to the Indiegogo campaign in the description below. And Cody Fernandez, you are the creator of Jack Irons. So your creation is kind of the focus of the night, but we'll also have a chance to maybe just talk about, our love of comics, those kind of things. So maybe to start with, could you just tell us a little bit about what Jack Irons is for people who may not have heard of it before?
Well, Jack Irons is a post-apocalyptic sci-fi western series with deep roots in human history and human spirituality. Um, it's kind of my attempt to consolidate my own thoughts on the world that we live in and how I kind of grew up and the environments I grew up with and the things I love.
I have a question for you. So I've read the
Please
first
do.
issue, and
Oh, thank
from
you.
a creative perspective, is this a project that's been kind of a lifelong passion that's finally coming to fruition? How long did it take you to actually conceive of it, versus actually making it manifest in a physical form? Was this something that you came up with within like the last year or your whole life, several years? Tell us a little bit more about how the idea came to you and the process of you actually bringing it to life.
Absolutely. Well, I started falling in love with comics in my teenage years when I started discovering all the fun, dark subject matter that's kind of dealt with that I wasn't used to as a young southwestern kid. And like a huge fan of the Punisher and Ghost Rider, and they just inspired me. When I read Garth Ennis's run on Punisher and his short runs on Ghost Rider, I knew what I wanted to do because of how much I enjoyed it, and so I started writing Jack when I was about 16, and I'm 26 now, so it's been about 10 years coming to fruition, and been about 4 years marketing issue number one and trying to get it some traction.
Well,
So it's
that's
been a
funny.
lifelong passion so far.
That's funny because from a creative standpoint, I have so much admiration for people like you. Because, for example, one of my friends is Mitch Breitweiser, and his character, the Red Rooster, is finally going to be taking flight, and it took him pretty much almost a whole decade. The same thing as you. You said that you started doing this, having it percolate in your head since 16, and here you are 10 years later, and you're bringing it to life. So obviously, you're bringing a lot to the table when it comes to what you've invested into this character and what you want people to get out of it.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that shows.
Yeah, no, absolutely, it was beautiful. Even the art on its own without color, I was floored. That's really
Oh,
good
my
stuff.
artist, Maximiliano Dallo, is just incredible. The whole book, how it came together, has just been magic, and how it's coming together now even more so.
So,
Um,
oh, I'm gonna cut
oh, go for
Marmaduke
it,
fan
go for
off here.
Go ahead.
it. Yeah, I
I'm
guess it's yours now, huh?
I'm going because I have this very pressing question because it was always in my head, and now that you've kind of admitted to it, I can ask. But uh, the line art for Jack Irons reminds me of Goran Parlov. Goran Parlov,
I love Goran.
yes, he was the artist for the Punisher, at least in the latter years of
Yep.
the Ennis run. I thought it was Goran Parlov, and I thought to myself, especially that first page where you see these people in the field, Goran Parlov has the ability to not waste lines. He's very uh, uh, economic when it comes to not putting too much detail, putting just enough detail so you know what's going on. And the way that that field shot was drawn was, from a composition point of view, perfect. It was great, and so I wonder, did that, knowing the Punisher artist and the Ennis run, did that have an influence when you picked him as your artist?
I didn't pick him. He found me, and I took him right away because he was just so good and so willing to work for a price I could literally handle.
Good,
It was,
awesome.
yeah. I was able to meet with him in my town at a McDonald's. I found him off of Craigslist.
Wow.
It was the whole thing. Like I said, it's just been a heck of a lot of fate intervening. I've been loving it.
I
And
love it.
Diallo's style is the perfect fit for kind of a rough cowboy character, and he adds just enough detail to the world that it. I think about Samurai Jack a lot because that show changed my life, but it has sort of the richness and the lived-in feeling of a world like Samurai Jack. So the other thing about
Great.
the other thing about Diallo that I'm interested in is how well he uses like shape and composition, like really rich dark shadows, making a really strong shape and kind of like a strong silhouette impression. Could you tell us a bit about how do you and Diallo work together? Are you more of the Stan Lee type where you kind of let Diallo loose to unleash to sort of design everything, or are you a little bit more hands-on in giving him instruction on how to create the world?
No, definitely very, very Stan Lee. I just have my script. We look over it. He comes up with whatever he feels like, and I haven't really had him change anything. The only thing I can take credit for is most of the original design of Jack Irons. Everything else is all from Dalo's wonderful imagination and talent.
You two are a real power couple then in bringing this character to life. Tell us a bit about your colorist. So you have reached the stretch goal to have Matthias Laborde. Is that right?
I believe so.
He'll be coloring the first issue, and we're hoping to
Yes.
get you to the stretch goal so he can color the second issue too. So I just think of Matthias's style as just very painterly, like Arizona sunset vibe to
Yeah.
it. So how'd you find Matthias, and what will that add to the world of Jack Irons?
Well, he found me once again, just like my publishers found me. Um, he just he wanted to do a page, and we let him, and I just fell in love with it right away. His he has a fondness for purples, and kind of reds and blues from what I've seen of all his other art too, and they really kind of stand well with Jack's silvers and his sunset on that page. Page 3 of our book just came out gorgeously. It's just been amazing. He was a have him on the team.
It was amazing having him on the team.
Yeah, I'm happy to have him on the team.
Good. I was scared your mic cut out there for a second, but it
It
sounds like
might
you're okay.
have.
All right. Let me think. So the Indiegogo campaign. Is this your first Indiegogo?
It is my second time running an Indiegogo on Jack. The first time made no traction and made about $10. That of course went back to the backer.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? What do you think changed between that first campaign and this one that you're running right now? Because I'll tell you something. I didn't know that until just a second ago when you said it. But you're gaining a lot of traction, and obviously I added you in
Yeah.
Twitter because I just saw your name pop up everywhere, and I thought to myself, like, just like Jack Irons, the Steel Cowboy, from the dusty horizon, you came riding in with two blazing steel horses,
I
and it
love
was
it.
it reminded me of Rags because obviously I talked to Rags a lot, and he just popped up on my radar immediately. I mean, it just seemed like everyone was talking about him at the same time, and it was the same thing with you as well. So I just tell us a little bit more about your social media. Like, did you learn something different in terms of how things ran with that first campaign versus now? I think a lot of people who are listening who are trying to do the same thing you are might benefit from taking some advice in terms of what you think changed.
I'd sure hope so. I really I'm a huge privacy advocate, so it took me forever to bite the bullet on joining social media. But this book, that first Indiegogo campaign, I was not on social media. I couldn't really promote it very well. I started it in a little bit, but I didn't gain any traction. But then these huge campaigns with their wider audience started showing up, and I believe that opened the eyes to a lot of people to the indie market that wasn't there before, and so I just hopped on that and found some great people to cross promote with, and made a lot of friends, and have been doing my best to support the community, and obviously they appreciate it because they're supporting me back.
No, absolutely. It's well deserved. I mean, sometimes people think that there's like this magical formula, and there kind of is. And I say that the magical formula is you talk to people in our community, because you'll find out that we're all really nice. I mean, I don't think anyone has any qualms about following or friending other people and chatting with DMs and things of that nature. I mean, most of the time during the day, it's friendly banter. We exchange memes, maybe a little tiny roast or two, but we're all pretty nice and civil with each other. So that's part one. The other part, depending on who you are, it might be harder, but that's the quality of the work. So I think that you had the quality of Jack Irons. It was a good story that you had. It was good art, good writing, and what you were missing was that critical component of you have to put yourself out there, and don't be don't be scared. It's kind of tough because just like in any situation where you have to break the ice, that can be difficult. But you did it, and I think you're finding out that it wasn't that bad at all. I mean, you just dipped in, follow one person, follow another person, and it's kind of this snowball effect where every day more and more people are tuning in, listening to you, seeing your artwork, and getting engaged. So I think, yeah, for anyone listening out there who might be shy, you're kind of proof. It's like, don't be shy. We're not going to bite. This is kind of a very open platform for us to be discussing this.
Exactly. I that was my biggest fear, honestly, with all the before I had really joined and really tried. There was so much fear mongering about this community that just it really, it spooked me, and I just decided, well, who cares? I need to do this for me and for my team, and I want to get my work out there and hopefully enjoyed. So why worry about the small stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. And you're seeing that because, like I said, I subscribe to a lot of people in our community or our network or whatever we call it now in Comicsgate,
Yeah.
and I can't go 5 videos without hearing your name pop up. So you're making the rounds, whether that be people talking about how engaging you are or the quality of the work, both of which are both good. And sometimes that's tough telling some people because some people have the networking down. They're great. I like talking to them, but they do need a little bit of polish, and it's there. It is just beyond their grasp, but that doesn't mean that it's unattainable. And so I think that obviously people like yourself and Rags as well, and other people who have maybe smaller campaigns that they're thinking about launching, this is a working formula. And I saw that you not only made the goal that you needed, but I think you're at what 145, 150%, something like that.
I think 160. Let me check. 160 and change, if I remember right.
169%.
There you go.
Wow,
Mama's got it.
there you
You're at,
go. Yeah, that's awesome.
you're at 4,221, and I I want to go all the way. I want to get you to that second stretch goal, 5,500 and a little extra, because you got a dope colorist. So let me think. Okay, well, connecting with what Tim was saying, what introduced me to you was, I think, people who I was following you on Twitter already, but other people who were aware of your work just kind of made me aware of all of the good work you were doing behind the scenes, interacting with people in the community. You were sharing your enthusiasm with other people who were creative people, artists and writers in the community. So then I just get like the best recommendation ever of all this work you're doing. And so then it kind of goes from just being you're a guy I follow on Twitter to you're a guy I follow on Twitter, and I really want to see what you have to make. So you're definitely an example of just reaching out to comics fans as a wise action for someone who's got a story to tell. You managed to click with people like me who are just looking for exciting stories that have meaning to them. So Tim, you've read chapter 1 of Jack Steele. I had a chance to read it as well. So I'd kind of like to ask you about the character of Jack Steele. What's interesting about him to me is he's a immortal cowboy, but there's also like this really palpable sense of death and weight upon him. So it's fascinating for a fantasy character who can't die to kind of speak so meaningfully to the idea of what death means. I kind of see death as one of the critical components of a story where if you just magically bring your characters back to life, what meaning does death have? But you've managed to capture that. So tell us a little bit about the importance of Jack's immortality and these themes together.
I just thought it was an outrageous contrast that could really allow my team to explore what death really is from almost an infinite amount of perspectives. In my book, in the first issue, you see right away that I really tried to make that palpable sense that his loss felt there, that there are all these great stories with these characters you want to know, but they don't end happily. And this man who's been living 200 years with the weight of those memories and almost infinite more, and how he can manage to survive and want to live when he's already guaranteed to do so, and in a world that's gone completely to hell. So why would he fight? He's done. But my goal is to work that idea into somewhere where, yes, I will fight. I will do better for these people, no matter how much weight of loss I have and how much love I have lost. All of that. That's kind of what I wanted to explore with this character when I conceived him like I did.
You are getting at primal heroic ideas where there's self-sacrifice in that. There's a sense of duty that's above and beyond what anyone would expect of a character like that. And that is such a sharp contrast with, I don't know, mainstream superhero characters where there just doesn't seem to be much weight to their actions. They don't take their heroism seriously. So I think that when people read the story, that aspect of the character is really going to resonate for them, and it definitely comes through.
How much do you want me to spoil on the? Well, okay, let me put it this way. You're not going to mind if I spoil very simple plot points in the first issue, will you? Because I want to touch into this a little bit more in terms of why you chose the space cowboy as a genre.
Oh well. You can touch on whatever you'd like. That first issue, everybody is available on Tapas.
There you go.
For free for everybody to read. So, we can start with a spoiler alert here, go and read that, and then come back to the live stream.
You guys
are really worried about that. But
you also can go to the Indie. Sorry, they can go to the Indiegogo page, and your link to the chapter 1 will be there on your Indiegogo page. So you guys should go support the Indiegogo, increase your support if you've already supported it, and then go read chapter 1. So I just wanted to do that little plug there. Yeah. So I'm sorry. You go ahead.
So, okay. When I was talking to people in private and I said, hey, this looks really good, and chapter 1 is available and I've read it and it's solid. Obviously, there's no politics involved in it. It is kind of what you get when you look at it. You have a feel of it. And the one response I got was, I mean, the art looks good, but I'm not much of a cowboy fan. And I said, but there's a catch. There's a twist to it. That's what you think. You think that it's nothing but kind of a space cowboy theme, which has been done before. But the twist to it is when it opens up, you notice that there's themes of reincarnation, and that's key because it's this idea that you can actually tell kind of multiple stories, and you're not limited to a single timeline. You're able to actually expand your universe in one fell swoop in a concise number of pages by showing that there's this kind of repetition that is happening. And so that question comes up of, well, why? And that's, I guess, where the drama comes in, is why is all of this happening? So I guess my question for you is, when you were scripting this out in your head, was the primary timeline always going to be set in a science fiction Western, or were you actually contemplating perhaps another genre to look at? Was it always kind of going to be Western based?
It was always going to be Western based. It's an ode to my loves as a kid. I want that Punisher darkness, and I want my bad guys to be bad guys. I want that vengeance story, that Jonah Hex feel, that Clint Eastwood, that Man with No Name feel.
Yes.
I want that to be the face. But I want you to look at that face and see just how deep, hopefully, humanity can get if you look at it at an unbelievably wide perspective.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. Okay, so people listening out there, this is absolutely true. It exists. If you don't believe me, you can look it up. But if anyone is out there, you can read the script for Gladiator 2. So, I mean, the Russell Crowe Gladiator 2 movie script. It is floating out there on the internet, and I'm going to summarize it right now. The script for Gladiator 2 was going to be immediately after Gladiator 1. Russell Crowe goes to Valhalla, and not Valhalla, he goes to the land of the gods. And basically, the god of Zeus says, hey, Maximus, you're awesome. I'm going to bring you back to life. So he resurrects the character of Maximus on the battlefield years later. And, essentially what happens is the gladiator character of Russell Crowe, Maximus, he's essentially immortal. And so he lives through many timelines through the Revolutionary War, through World War II, all the way up to the present day, where the movie ends with like the gladiator character being in the Pentagon, and you read that story and you think, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Your your book is like they took that script and they actually made it good. And so you tell them that first part with the script of Gladiator 2, where it's like, that's ridiculous, and you see Jack Irons, and it's like, no, like, this guy actually did it, and he did it better than a lot of the people in Hollywood who actually might have gotten this thing greenlit. So again, if anyone's listening out there, it is a fantastic story. And like I said, by page 3, when I realized that it wasn't going to be like a genre piece, I thought to myself, wow, there's a lot of depth here that you don't see on the surface until you start peeking. And then it occurred to me, that's why I think you put your first issue for free, because it's like, hey, read this, like, please just take one look at it, because I know you're going to be hooked when you start reading it.
That was my hope, of course, and honestly, my goal though was I just want to get it out. If I can only do one issue, I might as well share it with as many people as can access it. That was really, it wasn't much of a thought to me. I was just like, I can fund this, I can put it up for free, and I've done it. If it goes further, great, and thank goodness it has. But that wasn't my intention. It was my intention because of how my scripts I have written, but it wasn't expected, would be the word.
I have a question for you about how you script. So one thing that struck me was that we've talked about death, history spanning eons. So these are high concepts. These are meaningful concepts, but you have gotten it down into a really you can read this story, this first issue, in about 10 minutes. So it's really tightly packed in how you do it. So do you have like an editing process? I mean, do you just sit down and write it, or do you maybe like write down 60 ideas and then try to get it down to 2 ideas to contain it within like this really tightly knit package?
It just came together. I guess how I write is that way, because I started writing these about 16. And I've been editing them for the last decade, about 6 years for issue 1. And I really, I don't know. I had it in my mind and I put it down. And how we go about actually getting the issue finished, at least what happened with issue 1, is I wrote my script. I found my artist. He took the script. He does his designs and kind of storyboards and makes sure the panels flow nicely, all that good stuff. And then I get the artwork back and I rewrite to the artwork. And then we send it to the letterer. And then we have our finished project.
So, and you're facilitating all of this. So you're not just the writer. You are the kind of lead organizer on making sure this comes into fruition.
Yes, yeah, by far.
Okay,
it's my baby.
Yep, it's your baby. You've been working on this for years. I mean, that was a great question Tim asked, because that really resonated with me. Like, I can remember drawing superheroes when I was 6, and some of my earliest memories. So you've had this like year-long project. So one thing I'm curious about, without spoiling issue 2, because I want everyone to go support it, can you tell us, maybe give us an idea of how far into the future Jack's story might stretch, or could we expect to maybe similar to how Diversity in Comics has been doing Indiegogos for multiple projects? Can we expect that we could maybe come back and keep supporting you? Would you be interested in doing Jack Irons stories through a traditional publisher? What kind of a ride might we be in for in the future with Jack Irons?
Oh, same ride I'm in for, watching and looking. I want. So far, it seems I'm going to be crowdfunding at least the first arc each issue. I'm hoping I can leverage the good support and goodwill we'll get from releasing number 2 into a bigger, more financially successful campaign for issue 3 and maybe through 5 at once. That would be my hope. And then I can finish the arc and then try and release and sell a trade paperback, which is how my story kind of flows the best. But
I don't think you're going to have any trouble with that at all. That was actually going to be my next question. So, for example, when Mark and I, whenever we script our stories, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can do ongoing or book-ended, and that's the first thing that we have to decide on before we do anything. Book ended meaning that we know how it's going to end. We know exactly how many issues it's going to be. Whereas open ended or ongoing means that it's like your normal Marvel and DC titles where it can go into infinity. In your mind, for the universe that you've created, do you see a conclusion that is finite, or are you expanding this as you go? Some of it playing by ear, or in your head, you've had some time to ruminate on it. In your head, does it end, or does it continue? Which one is it? I don't know if that's something you want to actually spoil on,
No,
on
no,
the
no, no,
air.
no. It's fine. I want it to be my career. I want this to be my work, and I want to be able to know when I'm done with it. I am not done with it yet in terms of my writing and the story I've told.
Well,
Um,
I think obviously, when you do get to that point, well, I guess before I jump the gun, have you tried to
yeah,
find a publisher, or is this just something that you just decided, no, I'm just going to fund it? I see that everyone else
those
seems to have success.
those 4 years before crowdfunding was me shopping to publishers, and no, I got one response out of maybe 100 emails to almost 20 or 30 different publishers.
Well,
Nobody wanted to touch me with a 10-foot pole.
they might now. They might
Yeah, they
now.
said I found once my campaign started coming up, these little startup company in California called Wicked Publishing has been talking to me, and we've been figuring it out. And they're the ones who are providing my physical copies for my campaign, which basically made the world of difference for the campaign. So
Cool.
I'm going to be with them for a while, doing a grassroots kind of trying to bring up a publisher with my work and vice versa. And so far
Yeah,
so
that's
good. Love the
fantastic.
guys. They've
That
done
Yeah,
reminded
nothing but good for me and by me.
that's really inspiring again to people out there. There a lot of people are so focused on kind of the ones that we hear of all the time, your Marvels, your DCs, but there are so many startup companies and smaller publishers where, frankly, if you have access to a printing press, you have access to a physical medium. You can get your stuff printed and published. I actually know some people who, I do a lot of comic conventions, and one of the things that people will do is they literally will print physical copies of their comics, and they look great, and that is what they sell at conventions. And what happens is that just over time, word of mouth will say, hey, this looks really good, you need to shop this around. Another thing that happens is that publishers, some of the people who work for them, writers, artists, and editors, they'll be at those conventions walking around too. They'll see physical copies, and they'll ask you, is this self-done? Do you have a publisher or printer? How are you distributing it? Things of that nature. So that you don't necessarily have to have a contract with someone to make it happen. Like you just said, getting those physical copies in made a world of difference. You're holding it, you can see it, it has life, it has feet, and that can tell you a lot of information that you might have not known previously.
Exactly, and honestly, collectors love these indie books because they don't know what the print runs are going to be, but they know they're not going to be high. And so if any of our stories were to take off and become super mainstream, suddenly they have something that could be worth something someday. And
and
that's just great to see that feeling again in comics, because that's kind of been gone for a long time on newer books anyway. You can't even guarantee the story's going to continue the way you think it's going to be, let alone the price trends and all that fun stuff.
you've touched on something important, Cody, and I want to make sure we can clarify it. So when I first started talking about your work, I had some YouTube, I think it was maybe like one or two YouTube commentators who thought they would not get a physical edition of Jack Irons. Now, I knew that people would be getting a physical edition of Jack Irons. That's, if you read the Indiegogo carefully, you clearly see that people who funded at the $25 tier level will get a physical copy of issue 1 and issue 2 of Jack Irons. So
Yes.
yes, good. I just wanted to make sure we clarified that on the air for anyone who.
Now, if anybody's curious, the reason why I had to do it like that is because my publishers did not find me until I was about 2 or 3 weeks into my campaign and into my promotion. And you can't alter perks. I could have added perks, but then I would have had to get a hold of anybody who had already backed me and let them know this is a different option, it's better, all of that. And I just decided that it would be not only easier on my part to just make sure that I explain it as often as possible. I don't think I've missed a single tweet about it, tweeted at me or even about me, and to let people know that that's how it is. But I understand the confusion. I'm glad people are very willing to bear with me on that because we're going to have to also contact everybody when the campaign ends to get shipping information, which is not usual because you can program that into your perk tiers right away. And so we're going to have to do a little bit more legwork when it comes to the physical copies, but it's worth every second to get you guys those books, I'm stoked to get mine.
You mean to tell me that you interact professionally with your customers because you care about them?
I interact with all these wonderful people who are supporting my work. Yes, sir.
Well, how dare you? That's anathema to everything you're supposed to do as a professional. My goodness. What do we have here? So I want to ask you a story about your relationship with the art and the artist. In your head, because one of the best scenes in that book is when we see Jack Irons at the bar, and there are several scenes of how populated that place is. I mean, it looked like almost as robust a world as like the Star Wars cantina. When it came to the design of the world of Jack Irons, did you ever have to tell your artist to change anything, or did you accept his vision in the way he put things on paper? Was there ever any discussion about how that would look like, or did you say, hey, whatever you draw here, that is how it's going to be?
I was stunned by the artwork. I had no qualms for a second on basically anything he did. It was just outrageous. Like, yep, that's perfect. That's way better than anything I could have thought of.
Well, I asked that because I actually have not run into that dilemma yet. For example, I've worked with script writers who basically they say you have carte blanche. Whatever you draw is the way it is. I'll give you one example. It was kind of like when I worked with Dave Dorman. He asked me, he said, for this cover, what do you want it to look like? And I told Dave, I said, you're Dave Dorman. I am not going to tell you what it's going to look like. You are actually going to draw it, and whatever you draw on the cover is what I'm going to draw on the inside. And he was like, oh man, that's a lot of pressure you're putting on me. I said, Dave, you're the guy with the experience, okay? You have seniority. I will follow your lead. So I'm always very curious. I'm always very curious with how writers and artists collaborate and how they cooperate, because I'm sure there's stories out there of artists who have drawn things where the writers thinking to themselves like, this is not what I had in mind.
Well, in that case, I would assume it's not a good match.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's two people, you're working together to create something bigger than both of you, and so there should be some soul of each of you in there. And if you try too hard to control it, it's gonna break their spirit, and it's gonna make you not feel great with the finished product because you're seeking perfection for something that honestly does not shine with perfection. You want it to be good.
Our boy Dollar Bin Reviews has a question for you, Cody. He did the
Absolutely.
video that's the main video for your Indiegogo campaign. So he asked,
yes, he did.
Oh, by the way, Cody, are you cool if I invite Dollar Bin Reviews?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Please do. I'd love to hear from the man.
The more the merrier.
Okay, so Dollar Bin Reviews, check your Twitter messages. I'll send you the link. So Dollar Bin Reviews asks, is there going to be a major villain revealed in this first arc? Or is this more of an establishing Jack and the world? And then he says, if you don't want to spoil it, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fair. Issue number 2 establishes the world's 4 main enemies, and right at the end, you get an idea of who one of Jack's main enemies is. You know who the world's villains are and who have oppressed and own the world at this point. You learn all of that. You learn how the world fell. You learn about Jack's time in issue number 2. Then you learn a little bit about Jack, and you get to see him interacting in that world. And then you get to see one of his main rivals show up. So yes, there are villains on their way, and I'm waiting to see the character designs. I am so stoked to see them.
So I have a question for you in terms of kind of piggybacking on what we talked about with ongoing versus bookended. So you want to do ongoing. And I don't know, again, if this is something you can still answer now or you haven't thought that far ahead, but do you plan on having the Jack Irons universe, at least in the contemporary present? Do you feel like it's always going to be him in the cowboy space environment, or
no?
No, okay.
No, I have a second character already ready for his first issue. I already have it written, and it's just sitting and waiting. I want to release it closer towards the end of Jack's arc.
Okay, well, you heard it here
I'll give
first,
a preview.
Folks.
His name's Jean Du, the Golden Monk. Keep a lookout for that character.
Nice.
Wow, now that's going to be Now, see, now that's very interesting because so if I were you, I'm the type of person where I'd be so comfortable with the whole space cowboy setting that I would think, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I mean, I think people kind of like it, but you're eventually going to push that envelope and you're going to take it kind of farther than what people are thinking. So that's actually pretty cool.
My goal is to be able to get this character in this I want to call a franchise to a point where others can pick it up and give their stories in it. That's why I left Jack's life and lives so wide open. I wanted anybody to be able to write nearly any kind of story and have the weight of a franchise behind them. Very much like the comics companies have done forever, but with less, I don't want to say editorial control, but less such a heavy hand on it. I wanted the freedom to be there.
No, that's
And
really cool. If you're able to
mean,
establish such a robust universe, then I think that's really that I
the,
love
the
it.
main
Like I just think
the
that's really
main
neat.
four villains of the Earth spread out. They're not just on Earth. I'll tell you that much. And there's a lot of stories to be told there, and it can bridge franchises. It can bridge characters, and I'm hoping it does. But you know, I'm not getting too big. I'm hoping I can just get out this first arc, and so far I'm getting to issue 2, and I am just unbelievably happy to do so.
Well, ambition isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you look at Zach, for example. He has these whole universes that he's had in his head, and he's a fairly ambitious guy. I mean, he said, "Look, these are the stories I want to tell, and I have ages of stories I could keep on telling until the day comes where I retire." As far as the universe that you're establishing for yourself, I mean, the sky is the limit. I honestly, as far as your financial backing is concerned, the fact that you're able to hit 160% already is already telling. That's the funny thing. I was actually talking to Ben Henderson. You know, he's the guy
Yes.
he owns Cautionary Comics, and we were talking about his crowdfunding campaigns, and he has a lot of stories to tell. And we were talking about spacing. And one of the pieces of advice that I gave him was I said, when people will see that physical copy arrive at their doorstep, when they know that they have invested in you and you deliver a product to them, those people are going to come back again. And then that makes it so that the financial issue is no longer the issue. You already have these loyal people who are like, this guy can deliver. The story is good. The writing is good. We are in it for the full ride. So you might as well have, if you know you can fulfill those physical goals, the sky is the limit after that. You know, there's nothing stopping you.
I sure hope so. Depends on this comics environment and how it continues to grow. It's been growing in a positive way, but it also recedes. It's kind of it's a tide. It comes in and out. And I caught the waves, and I've been lucky so far. And
Yes,
hopefully
you
I can
have.
keep catching these waves.
Mr. Marvel asked something which might fit into what you were talking about with Jack living in a world where you could imagine lots of people telling a story within this world. So Mr. Marvel asks, will Jack be open to collaboration, potentially?
Oh, absolutely. The more work, I'm hoping to get this to a point where I'm writing and I'm organizing, but that I don't have to worry about producing more material in terms of widening the presence of Jack. My hope is to expand it as far as it can reach, and to anybody who wants to join in. The collaborations, I would love to do one shots with a lot of people in the community. I'd love to do crossovers. There's just so much potential in this wonderful and exceedingly talented group of people in our community. It's just been mind-blowing. I have to touch on the fan art that's kept me driving for so long. It's just outrageous. Every day it makes my day, and to see people taking their own time and energy to remake a character for me, and to allow me to post that up, let alone, you know, use it to kind of get some leverage and some good PR in the community, and let everybody see these talented people and hopefully connect with them and get them work. I think that whole ability of the platform is just outrageous, and I am so happy I didn't miss out and decide not to do it.
Every time you tweet out that fan art, it's like you've got this amazing museum that you're adding to, and I can see your enthusiasm for the fan art you received, because you've just documented so much of it, and you credit the artists. It's just something I know that as an artist, when I do like a fan work for someone, to just have that acknowledged by the creator, it's a good feeling. It's like, wow, the positive vibes I was sending out through drawing, they were received, and you're giving back that love using your social media presence.
I mean, I got a Fanimation from at Co Snow, I believe, or at Snow Mimi, and the name is Co Snow. That thing that made my day. I was ecstatic for about an hour and a half, and I must have watched the thing about 400 times. It's only about 6 or 7 seconds of an animated Jack, but I never in a million years would have thought I'd see it.
Well, I think the reason
it
why
makes my heart swell.
I think the reason why it's so important is, for example, I know that, for example, Marmaduke fan and I, as artists, we know the time it takes to do something like that. So, for example, if a Marmaduke fan wants to draw Spider-Man art, let's assume it takes him 5 to 8 hours. That is 5 to 8 hours where this character is inside your head. He's inside your head, and you're trying to get him out. You're trying to put him on paper and interpret it, and you're not going to be satisfied until it's finished. Which means that whenever you get this piece of art, there's a part of you that knows that my character lived in someone's head for the time it took that person to actually take the time to bring it to life on their own. And that part is, it's a very sublime moment when you realize that. You don't know what to expect the first time it happens. It's very odd. I mean, so this weekend I was with the Brightwisers and we were doing a signing, and what happened was someone came in and they said, "Can you look at my portfolio? And I want you guys and the Brightwisers also to take a look at it." And we saw his Red Rooster art, and my hair stood up because it was the same art that's been going around Twitter. So
Yeah.
this person that was, yeah, we met him. This person who was just kind of an anonymous person on Twitter came by, and so you're thinking about not only the time it took to do it, but the time it took for that person to come out and engage. That's real. I think that's the most rewarding thing about what we have going on here, at least on the Twitter and YouTube communities, is that we love it. Like, we just share it all the time. I feel like a kid trading cards and baseball cards again. Like,
Absolutely.
it's a nice feeling.
It's such a great feeling. It's an outrageous thing, and I really think there are so many wonderful people, and comics fans in particular, out there that miss that feeling of connection to the creators. And these big companies have started feeling so corporate and so controlled that there's no individuals to like. Not true, but there's less, and it's harder to find, and it's harder to connect to something you already loved. And so I think this new batch of people here are not only enjoying the fruits of being able to put something beautiful out into the world and have people enjoy it, but we're also enjoying the fact that these people make the time to let us know that they enjoy it and they want more. And here's a piece of art that I did for me, but also I'm sharing it with you because I enjoyed it so much. That sentiment is just so special.
You mentioned Garth Ennis era Punisher as an inspiration. So one of my teachers used to call story. She used to call it the cauldron of story. And you would mix all these things into the cauldron of story. You'd stew it up, and the cauldron of story had been existed for hundreds of years. So I kind of want to know what kind of artists and writers are in your cauldron of story in addition to Punisher? Like what types of awesome kick butt characters inform your imagination?
I'm a huge Hellblazer fan. Outrageous. I'm a little bit of an old school occultist, so I dabble in that, and I love basically almost every author I have of old school Hellblazer is outrageous. I don't really. Ennis is like the main guy I go to with my writing style, but I love Jeff Loeb's books on his Batman books. I'm just outrageous with Long Halloween is one of my favorites ever. Dark Victory was pretty damn good too. Besides that, yeah, I don't collect specific artists or writers so much as I do just stories and characters I enjoy. So it's hard to pick out more influences. I get a huge wide base of influences. I watch and consume as much media as possible. So there's just too many to think of.
Fantastic. Well, tell us a bit about the action in the world of Jack, because I mean we've talked a lot about sort of the deeper aspects of the character, but the action and adventure, that is a big part of the appeal of comics. So I noticed that Jack, he's a character who's in motion. Hey, Dollar Bin Reviews is here.
Woohoo!
Hey, I think
Howdy.
I'm here.
Yeah,
Oh,
you're
wait, I
here.
gotta mute this. All right, there we go.
Uh-oh. There you go.
How you doing?
Good,
Pretty good.
fantastic.
Yourself?
So Dollar Bin
right.
Reviews, you beat me to being the first to cover Jack Irons, I think, right?
Yes, you
Yeah, I
did.
think so. Yeah, it was crazy when you first reached out to me. It was, I believe, at like $700, a little over that. And I did my first review, and then it was just kind of off to the races at that point. I couldn't believe the reception that got. It pretty much started my channel. Yeah.
Well, that's a good intro right there. You know, you've probably been tuning in, and we've been hammering Cody with questions. So now you get to have round 2. So you can have at it.
Oh yeah. Well, I sort of did. I was having a panic attack setting up Google Hangouts because I thought it was all within YouTube. I did not expect to have to download a separate app, and then it couldn't recognize my thumbprint. It was a whole thing. But
The whole thing for me too, man.
Every single conversation I've had, there have been technical difficulties behind the scenes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I understand if you don't want to spoil this, if it's going to be a little bit of a reveal. But do you think this is, going to be like a sort of like a Tex Hex, so to speak, for Jack Irons revealed, or is it going to be more so about like just establishing Jack in the universe and all his wacky past lives in this first arc?
Okay, so the first arc, it's got a couple more issues after issue 2 coming that you'll get your conflict that you want. Issue 2 is going to reveal the 4 main villains of the entire world, not just Jack. They don't care about Jack. He's just some other guy. You know, they don't care. They have control of the planet. It's not their problem. But there's another character that shows up, and I'm hoping people will enjoy him. And we'll see. He definitely has a rival, and you'll see that.
Yeah, I'm just really invested in seeing where this story goes. Like, it's definitely my favorite campaign that's running right now. Like, out of everything that's running, yeah, this is the one that it really spoke to me, and I still couldn't believe that you never heard of Brave Star.
Oh my gosh!
I know people have been telling me that, and I'm just like, yeah, well, that makes sense. I've watched a bunch of episodes and the movie. So
I was about to say,
yeah.
I was about to say that was kind of a thing that was in the back of my head. I didn't want to mention it, so you had never seen Brave Star. My goodness, that is Brave Star is amazing.
It's classic.
Yeah, you have the horse that can talk with robot legs and has a gun that he talks to too. That was such a great show. So I have a question for you, Cody. So unlike some other people, I am a big Western fan. It is probably one of my favorite genres, but what I've always liked about Westerns, and I think the reason why it resonates not only in the United States but across the world, is because this idea of an untamed world on the edge of civilization where good and evil existed. That was the last time that kind of before America was fully developed. That was the last time in history where we had this romantic idea of good and evil meeting out on high plains. You ask people, and they have different type of Westerns that they like. For example, you have people who like John Wayne. I personally, no offense to anyone out there, I personally don't like John Wayne. And the reason why is because John Wayne is very heroic. He is a classically heroic character, whereas I felt like the West is untamed, which means that characters are going to be reflective of that. They too will be untamed, which is why my quintessential Western hero is Clint Eastwood's characters. He plays the same character in every Western, the anti-hero, the person on the Badlands who you're not quite sure where his moral compass is. Secretly, it is always pointing towards good, but outwardly, you have no idea. When I read the first chapter of Jack Irons, he is a stoic character. He keeps to himself. He is very introspective. He ruminates a lot. If you had to, again, for people listening who have not read this yet, explain to the people listening, if you had to put him on kind of a sliding scale of a John Wayne or a Clint Eastwood or someone else I'm not even thinking of right now, how would you describe him as a Western character?
He's much more man with no name, but imagine if he got real gregarious when he drinks. So that's what Jack's doing, is he tries to drown his sorrows, and
Uh-huh.
and in doing so, he needs to express them. So throughout the whole first issue, he's just blabbing to some random guy at the bar who probably don't want to listen to him, and he's telling him all this stuff that, from his perspective, is probably just all BS. But no, it's true. It's part of Jack's life, and he just
So
is trying to get it out there and deal with it.
so what I'm hearing from you is that he's like the man with no name, but when he drinks, he's like Doc Holliday in Tombstone.
Yeah, kind of. He's not wild. He doesn't want to hurt anybody. There's no animosity to it. If you read in the book, he's not even pissed the robot shows up to kill him. He's just like, oh well, you let me finish my drinks, thank you, and then he does his duty and gets out of there.
Do you feel that in the story? Do you feel like his? Do you feel like his? I don't know if you heard that or not, but anyway, do you
It cut
feel
out a
that
little
his
bit.
it was weird? Do you feel like his personality was that how he always was, or do you feel like that was over years of development?
That's how it's gonna develop. Issue
Okay.
life from when he's being Jack and born in the. I don't want to ruin the time period, but he's been alive for between 200 and 275 years. And so he has a childhood. You watch the childhood, and that's how he figures out when he has his curse and when he starts figuring out his memories. And that's going to be a fun reveal. I can't wait to get to that point because it's just going to be hanging over everybody's heads till I do.
Nice.
Since Dollar Bin is here, Cody, I think that sort of the fact that you've engaged with YouTubers. You've got a small YouTuber who's introducing your comic to the world on your Indiegogo page. Now, I just personally think that YouTube's kind of the future for rising comic creators. So, Cody, tell us a little bit about how you ran into Dollar Bin reviews and how it came to be that you're like you're really cross promoting one another. I find out about Dollar Bin reviews through your Indiegogo campaign, and he's letting people on YouTube know about your comic.
Yeah, I try to be friendly by nature, so I was just talking to everybody who wanted to talk to me, and sometimes it works out great. In fact, I'd say most, if not all the times, the very least, both people end up being happy to have talked to each other, and a lot of the times I get great people working together. Dollar Bin, really, I didn't have a video on my campaign, and that can make a huge difference. And Dollar Bin's made one, and I was like, oh wow, thank you so much. I loved his review. I loved his enthusiasm. His voice is killer for comic reviews. His lighting and setting is great for it, and I just I didn't mind taking advantage of it.
Do you see Dollar Bin reviews playing Jack Irons in a future audiobook edition?
I saw some comments about that. Maybe.
Oh man, that would be awesome.
Oh my gosh, holy cow! You do sound like Jack Irons.
I mean, I
Oh,
basically, I would love to do that. I did a lot of radio shows in college, so that was where I found a lot of this dark, grizzled, gruff voice. But yeah, it was so interesting crossing paths with this gentleman. Like, this is actually my 5th YouTube channel. I've been doing this since 2010, and every channel failed.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I was starting for a while. I've been doing some content, but it never gained a following like what I got now, like at all, like not even close. And it was just really serendipitous because when I crossed paths with him, I was also in the process of promoting one of my failed comic books. So I was just, kind of like bothering people like the critic, just like, buy my book. Hey, you, buy my book. And I realized I was probably annoying a lot of people, just shouting at them from the rafters to buy this book from this guy they never heard of. And then in the process, I realized I'm like, I'd probably be a better idea to promote people's books, just kind of really find my footing in the community more so as not somebody making the comics, but somebody that can maybe bring some shine to the books that they're falling through the cracks a little bit. And this campaign really helped me find that voice and really find what I wanted the channel to be about.
That resonates with me a lot because I worked as a artist for years, doing illustration, and I've found more passion just talking about comics on YouTube than I had for my entire career prior to that. I think there's a lot of demand to hear people talk about their passions. And if you, even if you just spend years reading comics, you gain insight into what makes good comics. And I think that up and comers and people who want to make comics, people who want to get into comics but they're not sure where to start, they appreciate that the passion it takes just to start a YouTube channel and start talking about it. I just remember hearing your name and thinking, great, Dollar Bin Comic Reviews, that is such a great concept. I almost had it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Like, a lot of people, they've been giving me guff, just like, you really find these in the dollar bin? You don't find this in the dollar bin. And yeah, the sad thing is some of them are $2, some of them are 50 cents. So I mean, it's
false promotion.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big fat phony there. Yeah.
Phony.
That's okay, because the name sounds good. I mean, honestly, I didn't even think about it that way. I just thought,
I appreciate it. Yeah,
I didn't either.
Yeah, I was freaking out because it's when I did a Google search for it. There are other YouTubers out there that do dollar bin reviews. So I thought that it was just gonna kind of get lost and people would be like, that already exists. Why do we need more of this? But yeah, I really feel like it's starting to carve out a niche as far as in this community. It's pretty wild. I still don't feel like real life. No.
Yeah, and I think so. One thing I've noticed is that the tables have kind of turned just in terms of how we look at what we are calling, I guess, indies. Because when I was a kid, I didn't read any independent comics. I mean, I pretty much just stuck with Marvel and DC. And occasionally I'd read, so it was funny, I would read like Ninja Turtles, but I never thought of that as indie. In my head, that was always mainstream. And honestly, when you thought of indies, you thought of like, oh, those are those bad books that you don't want, and your family shouldn't see you reading them because they're so vulgar and they're so dark and edgy that, whoa, like you got to watch out because those books, man, oh man, that's toxic right there. And now things have flipped because now obviously what we're seeing from like the big two is they're trying to push something that is so, in my opinion, so out of the mainstream that what's happening now is kind of this grassroots movement where it's like, no, let's get back to basics. Let's get back to basics and let's create these characters that are mainstream, that anyone can pick up, anyone can enjoy. And so it's funny how the quote-unquote indie market has actually kind of flipped in the last 20 years, how gradually over time, at least in the way we're seeing it, we are at the point where we can actually kind of revitalize these classic heroic archetypes from the ground up. I'm excited about it. Like I have never been so excited in seeing original intellectual property in my life. This is really neat. This is setting some very fertile groundwork for that.
Oh, I agree 100%. I think all of people are really getting tired of corporate culture, and even if they're with characters that they love, they're having a hard time seeing it in a lot of places, but it really is creeping in. And then we have all these wonderful people who are actually trying to express their soul and time without having the restraints of a big name to uphold, on their shoulders. We're just trying to build a little pile of rocks and seeing if people like it, instead of carrying a mountain like Batman, or trying to carry a mountain.
I want to compare you with Rags, because there's a lot of things that you both have in common that I think is fascinating. So in order for us to talk about this, we have to talk about Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, we think of Pirates of the Caribbean right now as a success because it is. It was a very successful franchise, still is, if I'm not mistaken. But for the longest time in Hollywood, no one wanted to touch pirate movies because there were so many pirate movies that at some point the genre kind of died, because it was this idea that, pirates are passé, no one really cares about them anymore. So Pirates of the Caribbean was a very risky endeavor because it was the idea that, this might end up being like another, like Treasure Island or something, where it's not that great because it's a genre that's dead. The same thing actually happens with Westerns. People think like, Westerns. Yeah, they think to themselves the Western genre is dead. And what I'm seeing
my
between
one caveat is that I believe the Japanese in anime and manga have kind of kept the Western flame burning for a long time.
Oh yeah,
and
they
that's
are.
where I picked up a lot of mine. That flame's there. We picked up the samurai genre, we ran with it, and now they're picking up the Western genre, and we're running with it, and now we can run together. And I love it.
now what we can do is this. Since you brought it up after I address this, we can delve into that because this is really cool. I like
Yeah,
where this is
absolutely.
going.
Absolutely.
So between you and Rags, the other thing I was thinking about too was when Brian Bull, when Rags approached me. Obviously, I look at things with a great deal of skepticism, and when he said it is a zombie book, I was thinking to myself like, I don't like zombies. Like I'm so sick of it. And he was like, it's a zombie book, but it's not. It's about a ginger-headed girl who can't find pants. And I thought to
It's a
myself,
character piece. It really
exactly,
is. I
it's a
love
character
it.
piece. And I read it, and he sent me a full PDF. I read it, and I said, this is hysterical. Just when I thought that the zombie genre was dead, this breath of creativity went in, and someone said, I know how to rework it in a way that is going to be entertaining. And you, with Jack Irons, like I said, I couldn't sell it to people on just the cowboy genre. I had to sell it to them on, now hold on a minute, because you think it's a cowboy genre piece, but it's not. Just give it 3 pages, and you're going to find out why. And those people were like, wow, okay, I didn't see that one coming. Wow, okay, that's really cool. So what you're saying is true, because one thing I've noticed was I dipped out of anime and manga years ago, but I got back in when people started recommending books to me like One Punch Man or My Hero
Yeah. Oh,
Academia.
yes.
And those 2 books on their own, One Punch Man and My Hero Academia, single-handedly do a better job at telling Western storytelling with what is supposed to be a dead genre like
Oh,
superheroes
yes.
than we have in the last decade. Like, it is not dead. It's just that you've given it to kind of intellectually and creatively bankrupt creators who just can't see new and fresh ideas of how to work with it. So I hope you're flattered that I'm putting you in that same group.
Oh,
But I
absolutely. I'm glad not to be part of the old guard. you know, it's just great. In particular, the One Punch Man story is great. It was a web comic that he just worked like crazy on drawing and writing, and his art wasn't great, but he found somebody once it took off, and it's just become a phenomenon. He is a great rags to riches story. Of course, his name is One,
one,
but
yeah.
but I mean, that was super inspiring to me. I had already started when I learned that, but that kept my flame burning like crazy. I was like, what? He actually made it that far. He's already got a series. He's set, and it's a great series, and it's a great set of books, and it's just awe-inspiring. The comic industry is not dead. It is alive and kicking. It's just out of people's purview in some ways.
Now, it's so interesting though. So you mentioned that you were inspired by some anime and manga, and that's echoed with like Just Some Guy. Just Some Guy talks extensively about how anime and manga has helped him understand better storytelling. I know that #1 Marmaduke fan as well, because I've read, and I'm not read, I'm sorry, I've listened to several of your manga reviews as well, and that's the same thing that happened with Mark and I. Was honestly, I told him, I said, hey, I just watched this thing called One Punch Man. You gotta check it out. And Mark, it's ironic because he actually speaks fluent Japanese. He was like, I don't like anime. And I said, I know you don't, but you're going to want to watch this. And he binge watched it. I mean, he was at my place and he just watched the whole thing. And he said, holy cow, that was good. That was really, really good. And I said,
It's
yeah.
mixture of comedy and heart. It's
Right.
heart. The heart in that series is outrageous. It's kind of like a little bit of what the heart I want to get at is. There's this character who's just so powerful. He's numb, but he doesn't want to be.
Right.
and throughout it all, they were able to contrast that strength with characters like the Moomin Rider, where it's this super weak guy, but his heart is huge. We
Right.
get to see him try, and that feeling of fighting underwhelming or overwhelming odds with what you have is it's a little. It used to be a staple of the comics industry, and now it's a little bit more like we know these guys are powerful. We know what they can do. They're going to be fine no matter how low you bring them. You're going to kill them. They'll be back next week. It took a little bit out of that.
When you first started the stream, some of these people may have missed this, but you opened by talking about the core appeal of Jack Irons, and I still remember it. It wasn't he's a cowboy and there's lots of fighting. You talked about how this is about death, and this is about someone who's like struggling with why is he alive, and this idea of just human depravity across history. And it was a really tight presentation. And what that gets at for me, I think this connects with what Timothy was talking about, is that really good stories that fit into a genre, you can sometimes take what they are and you can parse that down to a few sentences and you've got your sale. And you can do that with One Punch Man, you can do that with My Hero Academia, any story that really resonates with people and will last. I think that's the important thing, because there are fads, but a story that lasts is a story where you can return to it and see. I think the creativity is what distinguishes it from a million other stories in its genre. So if there are a million cowboy and space stories, then the appeal of Jack Irons is this element or mortality. Cody, could you maybe like touch on that real briefly again for those who may have missed it at the very start of the stream?
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's really is the heart of the book. I wanted to write. He didn't have to be a cowboy. I just like that genre. He just ended up being a cowboy. The point, the thing I wanted it was to have a character who has to, like almost all of us, if you really take the time to look, looks back at human history and says, you know, what are we and why are we reaching? What are we doing this for? And what is all of this for? And I wanted that to be, you know, take it to the superhero level where it's an extreme. This guy actually literally feels and remembers all of those experiences. He's lost 100 wives. He's lost 100 children. He's been that child watching his mom watch him die. Those kind of things. And I wanted this character to really just explore that and try to look at it and do what we all do every day, which is move on anyway, live our life anyway, try and be better anyway.
Dollar Bin Reviews, since are you still here?
Oh yeah.
Sweet. So you were kind of like first on the scene. So I kind of like, I tried to segue us into talking about like the appeal of Jack Irons. So could you tell us a bit about the appeal of Jack Irons for you when you first come across it?
Well, yeah, they're basically, for me, it was impossible not to make that Brave Star connection over and over again. You know, as I'm going through this, I'm breaking out, you know, I have some of the old toys and some of the children's books that really have some solid art anyway, so I just kept them. But yeah, I'm just making the comparison over and over again in my head as I'm reading through it. Why is this captivating me so much? Because I wanted to be able to put it into words when I'm doing a review for this. And I wasn't able to really encapsulate it until later. But Brave Star, I mean, if you're not familiar with it, he wears the white hat. You know, he's very indicative of that John Wayne era. Why did I call him John Wayne? Like, you know who I mean. He's John Wayne. He's that, like, you know, really, he basically the Superman of Westerns. You know, so that's a whole golden age era in itself. This, I feel more is like, it's a change into the guard. It's the same stuff that resonated with me with Clint Eastwood's stuff, because now he's wearing the black hat, but he's still, you know, he's a good guy, but he's a good guy in a much grittier, darker way, a way that really resonates with the modern age, and how a lot of times, you know, there's no easy situations or easy choices that get you out of these bad situations. Sometimes you got to make really hard decisions. And Jack Irons is just, oh man, he is that me doing that hiss? I hope not. Yeah.
It might be me, Chuck.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's all good. I thought it was me through the headphones. I was like, oh man, is that me? I'm ruining the stream.
Yeah, I must have been trying to hold back a laugh. A good laugh. Like, but yeah, I'm proud. Yeah. Thank you laugh. But
yeah. And it's just great because Jack, he represents that Clint Eastwood era of Westerns that I really don't see a whole lot in comic books at all these days, since like Jonah Hex or any of that stuff. And you know, we could go off on a tangent about the movie, but I'm not going to do it.
Thank goodness.
We're talking about the comic. And
I believe Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti still put out pretty good Jonah Hex books, is from what I've
100,
seen. I'm
100%.
impressed with that.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with that. I still love my Hex, no matter how. I mean, I'm always impressed how much they get away with making them look like Clint. They always do, and they always do it well.
Oh, it's all good. And really, Westerns just in general, they need more of a resurgence in the popular culture. Like that's just a quintessentially American genre, and it just doesn't get enough love. That and film noir are really dying out. And it's funny that you mentioned, you know, Japan kind of carrying the torch. They've done that for film noir too, and they've really just been keeping these American genres on ice for us. Now we can grab them back. Now we can just take them back, and we can really do some nice stuff with them. And there's just so many possibilities for where this story could go. I think it could be an ongoing series, like into infinity.
That's my hope. I designed it like it, but it can go as far as it needs, and I'm sure I can find an ending if it need be.
And that's good too. Like it takes a lot of cojones to end a story, especially when it gets popular. So if it serves the story better to have an ending and to have a definite thing, I would have much rather see that than it going off into the 1,000 issues or so.
Well, if anyone is listening and is not familiar with Jonah Hex, and you're interested in a good Western besides Jack Irons, Jonah Hex by Jimmy Palmiotti is fantastic. It doesn't matter which volume you pick up, but it's anthology based, which means that you can pick up volume 3 and that's okay because the stories in there are self-contained. But that really reignited kind of my passion for the Western genre as a method of storytelling. What I do like about Jack Irons is I think he's a much brighter character than Jonah Hex. Jonah Hex is he is dark. Some of the stories are very dark and very
Yeah, he's an
tragic.
Old West Punisher.
He
Yeah,
is
he's
an
an Old
Old
West
West
Punisher.
Punisher.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And
That's
the way I
exactly
found
what
out
he is.
about
That's
it,
why I love him.
the way I found out about it was I was actually buying. I have the full run of Garth Ennis on Punisher, every single book, and finally at the end,
Yeah.
when I bought the last one and I bought Jason Aaron's run too, was on Amazon. It even said customers who like this also liked Jonah Hex, and I thought Jonah Hex, like the Western Two-Face ripoff, like you gotta be kidding me. And I got it. I bought volume 1 just on a whim, and I thought, if I don't like it, I'll either sell it back or give it to a friend. And I loved it so much, I bought every other volume, and I still have. But those stories are fantastic.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the biggest comic inspirations for Jack Irons, of course, is overall Jonah Hex. But I don't know if you guys remember, there was a run back in about the late '80s called Hex, where they sent him into the
Yes,
future.
yes, and it
And
is
that was
canonical too.
direct influence. I love it.
And it's funny because
Uh,
Jimmy Palmiotti and Garth Ennis, they actually refer to it in the DC volume. They specifically say like there was that one time involving like future events, but we're not going to get into that. So it is canonical in the Hex continuity. But yeah, definitely.
yeah, he also gets stuffed when he dies. I love it. It's just so great.
No,
He's just a
they
stuffed carnival freak at the end.
that was, and then they rewrote it, so they actually retconned it
Oh,
at the end of the
oh,
run.
I miss
Yeah,
him being a stuffed guy.
it was great though. That the explanation that they gave was great. In fact, so I'm not even spoiling anything
No,
because
don't worry about it. I'll figure it out.
yeah, it's awesome. I loved it. In fact, when they retconned it, that was one of the few retcons where I said that's perfect. That is a great way to do a retcon right there.
Good.
For anyone who's just joining us, the link for Jack Irons Indiegogo is in the description below, and we're trying to get it to its second stretch goal. We've reached the first stretch goal. We're trying to push it to its second. So I am so happy for the success for Jack Irons. I think we're going to have just like some casual conversation about art and comics and inspirations. And for those of you in the live chat, if you have questions about Jack Irons or questions for Cody, at me in the live chat, and I will see that. And we might, Cody, we might get some interesting queries for you from our live chat audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to hear them.
Let me think. This conversation has been going great. So Cody, we've talked inspirations. We've talked, your vision for the future, your creative drive, your interaction with people online. You've talked about like the passion of the character, and Tim, you brought up other characters in comics who kind of feed into this sort of general appeal. There we go. The general appeal of the character is something I wanted to get into because we've talked about this anti-heroic vibe, but I noticed a strong heroic vibe as well, at least kind of coming in at the end, where it seems like he at first his like sort of first instinct is to be a bit ambivalent and not get involved, but he is sort of resolving himself to do something, and that's just like hints at the future. But the feeling I get is that this is a character who is, despite what you've talked about, despite kind of these dark aspects to his history, does have a drive or maybe a passion to preserve other people's lives.
That was he's watched too many. There's a huge section. There's a lot of spoilers, because it's a huge life and a huge character that I don't really want to put too far forward. But you can imagine this man who remembers being a mother and watching his kid come out stillborn. Watches. I mean, this man has the weight of humanity on him, and he's forced to live. So where do you find the reason to not just sit there and waste away, because it's not going to change anyway? Same way we all do. We all get up in the morning. We all make some light happen on this earth, and that's kind of what I'm trying to keep alive in Jack. Is that I'm trying to drive home how bad things are and how good we are for still moving forward through this character. And I think that's coming through. I'm hoping to continue to make that brighter and to polish that stone and to hopefully have it attract more and more of an audience.
Can you double check your mic? Can you double check your mic real quick, Cody? I think
hello,
it might. Okay, we got you. I was just here to
okay.
Okay, you're good. Sweet.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So how much of that did you guys catch?
I caught everything except for maybe like the very last syllable. You got it all out.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I got it mostly out. All right.
All right. Scotty Richard Studio asked me a question I just can't pass up. Has or will Jack fight zombies, vampires, or werewolves?
Okay, to be fair, there is a spoiler, and yes, I know you guys are not fans of zombies. There are kind of zombies. You'll see. And I'm hoping my take on them won't kill you. Won't kill the interest. But they're not a big deal. They're just kind of like speed bumps. They're not actually part of the main story. They're just things for him to get out of the way.
This might be a kind of general question which you can answer without spoiling, but I noticed that we've got this history of Jack's lives in issue 1 that feel real world, but we also have this futuristic space situation where anything could happen. So you've talked about how you have lots of vision for the character in the world, but is this the kind of world where we could expect anything, expect the unexpected? Like I could see Jack getting into any kind of old grand adventure in any number of situations. Is that something that's important to you for this character?
It is important to me. I'm trying to make him a wide character, like I've been saying. I'm trying to make him be able to fit into anything logically, and then you can just take him right out, and it's fine. It's kind of it's hard to put together, but the world really opens up once I start getting through this storytelling, especially explaining why all these creatures are on Earth. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really hoping that it delivers home the feeling of the world, and so that you want to see him overtake and win, even if it's not gonna likely happen. I'm really trying to make it something fun, and with my artist Max, he does so much fun art. All the alien designs are just so fun to look at. It really reminded me of the old Men in Black animated series. In fact, I've gotten that from a couple other people, where the designs are kind of off all over the place. And I'm hoping to continue that. I want the book to be interesting visually, and so far he's nailed it every time.
Yeah, and he captures on that whole. It's a warm purple palette, which is great. I mean, that's one of those basic tricks of coloring that you can tell anyone. Where it's like, hey, if you just go on like Google, or if you go on like Pinterest and you just type in like color palettes, that is one of the best combinations that you can have, and it's great because it fits the Western genre very well. It's almost like there's a constant setting sun, and you have the purple that kind of offsets it. Yeah. So I think from a visual perspective, spoke to me. Yeah, absolutely.
No, go ahead. No, it spoke to me because I'm a New Mexican. I see these sunrises and sunsets every day if I can help it. So yeah, I just it spoke directly to me right away. I never had a second thought about hiring Matthias to color it once he did those pages. I didn't have a second thought. I just thought it was perfect.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you also got a letterer too, correct?
Interesting story with the letterer. At least recently we had a I don't want to say a disagreement because it wasn't that way, but he felt he needed to leave the project. So I had to yesterday scramble. And right away, this community just jumped on it, and I must have gotten about 50 letterers together, and I'm looking through and going through them, and I have a few real promising candidates. But my previous letterer, he did decide to leave.
Well, that's fantastic because it kind of shows that here amongst friends, that you just put the casting call out and bam, there you go. Like you have all the applicants you need. And we noticed that obviously with Zach, with Richard, kind of spearheading a lot of this, Jawbreakers, besides Brett and Malin, a lot of what is happening kind of on the side is all stuff done by community outreach, people who are donating fan art and logos and showing what they have. I actually don't know who his artist is going to be for Devil Dog, but apparently he's an up-and-comer, someone who was, I guess, one of us, you know? And I just think that that is so cool. I love it. I love stories like that where, because it shows kind of a decency and a humanity to us. I think that people who are on outside looking in, I'm sure that they see us and they're like, I want to be one of these guys. Like, these guys are really cool. Like, they're all like optimistic. They help each other. They pull from each other. That's the way to do it. So I'm really glad to hear that you were able to get a replacement letterer for yourself.
Oh, so quickly, and it's just it was amazing because that was a real hurt because I mean, to be fair, he's been really cool about how he could have left because I mean there's so many ways this could have turned into a nightmare, and he's just been really good about it. I mean he's still allowing me to use his lettering on my free to read issue, for instance, until I can replace it, until I start getting the art in. So that's been really nice. I mean it could have become a nightmare, and I give him all props for dropping out like a gentleman.
Well, still talking about you, but maybe moving off the subject of Jack Irons a little bit. Can you tell us, in your mind, do you see yourself only working on Jack Irons, or do you have other intellectual properties that you have in your head?
I think I mentioned earlier the Golden Monk. I want him to come out, but overall, out of the Jack Irons universe, not at the moment. I just want to focus on my big baby and see where it grows. But I am so very well open to branching out and learning more and interacting more wonderful.
So this is definitely your passion. I mean, going forward, you are sticking to Jack Irons and maybe playing off tangents based on other characters you're going to introduce. But yeah, this is going to be your baby. So this is like your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you're like Peter Laird or Kevin Eastman. Yeah.
That's my hope. I'm really trying to get that. I'd love a Saturday morning cartoon.
yeah, and then people will say, "Wait, isn't this Brave Star?" And we'll be like, "No, it's better than Brave Star."
So much better.
There we go.
Well, you got to have a talking jackrabbit with a gun.
That's key.
I could do that.
Don't do that. I'm just kidding. I have to play off the rabbit.
Oh no, now it's in. It's canon. Make a little alien rabbit in the back. I'd actually probably make him a jackalope.
That's what I mean, a jackalope. Yes. Yeah, little talking jackalope with bionic legs, and people. I think obviously you have Dollar Bin Comics, and he knew the Brave Star reference, and people will be like, "That's pretty funny. That is a throwback to Brave Star." For us old timers who remember them.
Our friend Indie Dave Comics asks for We're Great Danes. I can't possibly imagine what gave him that idea.
Okay, fine. We got Great Danes too.
We got a not Great Danes, but we got a good question that kind of feeds into this. Carl's Amateur Hour asks, are the Jack Irons stories going to vary in tone from more lighthearted adventures to harsher stuff from issue to issue, or is the tone going to be consistently dark?
Let's see. The first two issues are most definitely dark. The second issue, about partway through, you see the hope when he sees the hope. And so as things progress, I'm hoping I can bring more and more, not just these negative memories of people dying that he loved and things like that, but also memories of things that can inspire him to do great feats. Because at the end of the day, he may be immortal and he heals unbelievably quickly, but he's just a man. A really intelligent and well-studied and well-versed man, but he is just a man. It's very much a Batman without the ability to build and maintain high-end tech. And without the eidetic memory, just a lot more memories. So I really, he's going to be fighting supernatural foes where honestly, they could pin him to a wall and he'd be helpless. And I'm really hoping that I can use moments of this light pride and heart to contrast against his hopelessness and to break through, because that's kind of what I'm doing with the story overall. But it will be dark because I need those dark tones to really drive home how, no matter how dim that light is, that it is way brighter than that dark could ever hold back.
Mr. Marvel has a question I can't resist. He asks, if Jack always comes back, will we ever see Jacqueline Irons?
I mean, I'm open to my universe and how I have it plotted does open up to the multiverse. So absolutely. I would love to see a Jacqueline Irons. I'd love to see a Jacqueline Irons fan art ASAP. I got a androgynous fan art that I'm pretty sure it's still supposed to be a guy, but it's in the manga style, so it's very hard to tell. That's the closest we've gotten.
Beachy Boy Jack Irons.
Yeah, Beachy Boy Jack Irons. I love it. And that's how you do it too. So it's funny because I think part of gender swapping as a meme or as a part of contemporary comics, I think it started because of fan art where people would do it because it's this idea of, hey, what if in an alternate world there was this case where you had like your genders that were switched? And I think part of the disagreement or part of the malcontent that we have right now is the idea that in your mainstream books it's just not done in a way that's respective to the character, but you kind of wrote yourself into a way where it's possible through multiple lifetimes. Obviously, you're not reincarnated in your universe as the same person every time. So that's one of those ideas where just based on your storytelling, it's not only organic, but it's forgiving because it fits into the storyline. I mean, that can happen.
Yeah, exactly, and I'm all for it. Really, I'm not going to close any doors. I don't have any firm beliefs with this. I just want it to grow naturally and however it needs to. If there's an interest in the Jacqueline Irons storyline at some point, you guarantee I'm going to put it out.
Well, but will he be at one point? Can he be reincarnated as a Great Dane? Like,
I've thought about the animal bits. I have. I really have. I am not sure on that one. In Jack's time, the world's gone to hell, so there's barely anything for anything. So there's not much life left. There's barely even any people. So I don't have to worry about doing that too much in his time. But who knows in a past life? I could totally have him be a loyal dog, and do a story with that. One of my favorite stories, in fact, of Hellblazer is this one shot about him trying to save a dog's soul who's being mistreated in his house, who's haunting this old lady and one of John's friends. I mean, I love those stories and how it was written to explain how the dog was feeling and how it was smelling was just a work of art. I loved it. It was so beautiful. Still probably my favorite issue of Hellblazer out there, just because of how calm and well, not calm, but how it was written. It was gorgeous, and I love that innocence that you can convey with animals, and I think that would be a great fit with Jack. But I don't know when, I don't know how, and I really don't know if. But it could work.
Maybe I'll draw some fan art and see if that gets the ball rolling on it a bit.
Number one Marmaduke Irons.
Yes.
Brian Ball of the Rags Zombie team
Hey, Brian.
He asked us if we could see a Rags and Steel Cowboy team up. I already know from personal experience that you're very interested in team ups and crossovers, but how would you see Jack Irons working with Regina from Rags Zombie?
That's a tough one because she's real human, but he would really understand her pain, and I think it would be a better emotional story, like Brian did with Rags, than it would be a action story. So I think it would be something where they would be stuck in some place together and have to work together to figure stuff out, and he's got to deal with her bad attitude, and she's got to deal with his natural aversion to talking and being with people, and they have to work something out together. It would be something I'd love to shoot back and forth with Brian, no question.
No, it's so much fun because Brian and I have been talking too. Obviously, we've known each other for more than a year. We kind of came into the same scene, and the fact that he's so willing to lend his character of Rags, of Regina, out to people to create art and to incorporate them into work is pretty neat. I mean, when I asked him if I could put Regina into My Hero Macadamia, I mean, there was no hesitation. He was like, yeah, go ahead and do that. And there's another project I have coming where she might be appearing, but it's this idea that, so I think the reason that this happens is because first and foremost, if you're in quote unquote #comicsgate, we're friends. It's the idea that first and foremost, we're friends. We get along. We have a hobby that we all like. And we like playing in other people's sandboxes. I know Mr. Marvel, he's probably listening right now, but he actually reached out to me, and he was like, hey, brother, do you mind if I use this character? And I was like, you don't have to ask, okay? Like, trust me, you do not have to ask. You can even kill my character for all I care. And I will love it. I will pick up the book simply because of that, because that is an acknowledgement that is flattering, and I am not greedy with my intellectual property at all. We're all friends here. We all want to help each other, so I love it. So obviously, um, I can't play my hand either too hard, but this idea of Jack
Yeah.
Irons being shared as an IP, I love that idea too. So I'm glad that
Oh,
you shared that.
I'm so much with that. I really, the Disney really kind of screwed the pooch when it stopped the public domain laws from how they were. Batman, Superman would have been public domain now for about 30 years, and people could have been making amazing, wonderful, wide variety of stories. And instead, we've been stuck with them fishing around the same talent pool for that amount of time, and it's just hard to watch because we love these characters. And so I think our group of our the Comsgate realizes that, and we want our characters to be just as loved, and we want to come out of the gate letting these people know we love these characters, and if you love them, go ahead. Let's see, because there's some harm possible, but at the end of the day, I would love a bunch of bad art more than no art at all.
Well, so this is the interesting thing about that. For anyone, I think Marmaduke fan knows about it. If I'm not mistaken, I think you mentioned it once. But for people listening in the audience, this might be kind of interesting. But did you know that the Ninja Turtles universe and Daredevil are connected by origin?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
The
I had overheard that. I'm not very familiar.
It's pretty neat.
It is really neat. So what happens is the canister from, if you remember the origin story of Daredevil, a
yes.
canister hits Matt Murdock in the head. In the Ninja Turtles universe, if you look in issue 1, a canister hits someone, rolls down into the sewer, breaks open, and hits the 4 turtles. So they actually have a shared origin story in there. And the funny thing is, in retrospect, nowadays something like that probably wouldn't fly. You would have a legal team coming from Papa Disney saying that, hey, I know that this was a joke, but knock it off. And you just wouldn't have that. And one thing you had in 80s and 90s DC and Marvel books, you would always have, because a lot of those writers and artists were friends, even between companies. So you would always have like characters that would appear in other people's books. For example, I think there was a run on Thor where there were 2 characters, like a hippie and an old man, and they were side characters. And in a run on DC, that later that same month, those same 2 characters appeared because the writers and the artists were friends. So it was like, hey, I'm gonna throw these characters in here, and guess what? Like, you're gonna have them appear in your book. So it kind of shows that our universes are connected, and it was just in fun because this is storytelling. This is fun for the reader. Readers like seeing stuff like that.
They did that recently between Gravity Falls and Rick and Morty as well, which is kind of
I heard
a cool
that
connection. I'm stoked about that because they're both just some of the most excellent Western cartoons to come out for a long time.
Right.
And it was just great to find out, oh, wow, look at that. Same multiverse. That is great. It's just, I love those. And of course, you're the bunny. I love those Easter eggs.
Well, so that was something that Mark and I did because we read a lot of Ghostbusters. So Ghostbusters by IDW is a consistently good book, at least from the time that Eric Burnham and Dan Schoening were writing and drawing it. And Dan Schoening loves Easter eggs. You pick up any of those volumes of Ghostbusters, especially the beginning ones, every panel just has a reference to an 80s movie or a Ghostbusters toy or something, and they're hidden. You have to have like a magnifying glass, but it means we like it because it means that not only do the creative team have fun, but the artist has fun in trying to do this. Because if a kid is reading that and they see a DeLorean in the background, if I were a 10-year-old, in my head, I'm not just thinking of that as an Easter egg. I'm thinking of that as, whoa, like that's insane. Like, what if Marty McFly and Doc Brown exist in the same world as like the Ghostbusters? Like, that's crazy. And so Mark and I, we did that with a lot of Comicsgate people, and obviously we've grown since then, but that's why we had Rags, that's why we had the Jawbreakers in there. And I'll tell a story that's really funny. I think some people have heard this before, but so My Hero Macadamia, because we went into 3 printings, it was valued at around $15 or $20 on eBay on the secondhand market. But the night that Richard answered the question, what is the first canonical appearance of the Jawbreakers, he said on Twitter, the first appearance of the Jawbreakers is in My Hero Macadamia, issue 1. our price shot up by $10 overnight because people paid attention. They were like, "That's so cool! Like that's neat that the Jawbreakers and My Hero Academia coexist. Like you can." And I'm like, "No, they don't. Trust me. Storytelling wise, no, I'm not saying that. But the fact that people were taking that as canon, like yes, as ridiculous as it sounds, they somehow do coexist in the same universe. People loved it. I was at a convention the next day and people were buying copies of it because they're like, dude, I saw this on eBay. The price went up by $15. Like, I just want to buy your copy right now because that's really cool. And I just told myself, like, man, oh man, like our IP, the creators that we have in our community, by the day, there's so many of them popping up. And the fact that we're so willing to just trade characters is great. Like it pumps us up, gets us excited. People love seeing it. So I'm glad, I'm glad that Brian is here in the chat. I'm glad that Jack Irons, obviously you're stoked. You're not very protective of your character potentially popping up in some other properties. That's a lot of fun.
Oh, no, absolutely. Go for it. Excuse me.
What you've both gotten at is in the early days of comics, like when Batman first appeared with Superman, there was an excitement element to that, and there was almost a weirdness element to that. What? Like Batman and Superman in the same book together? And I kind of connect that with how lawless the early comic book industry was. Like the newspaper comic strips were insanely popular, and then someone gets the idea, let's put a bunch of newspaper comic strips in a magazine format. And I think there was a lot of experimentation and almost kind of silly energy to the early comic book industry. And that was people make fun of those old books, but that was the energy that created these properties that lasted 80 years. Now with the internet, it's like we have this new printing press that's just come into existence, and these people have become friends. We've communicated with each other. We've become aware of each other's creative work, and this potential to see our characters interacting is exciting to a lot of people. But what's different in our case is for DC, it was like their company, and they just had to introduce one group of artists to another group of artists at the other end of DC. For us, the internet is facilitating it, and we kind of build it out of our own friendship without a corporate direction. So, we become friends with one another, and there's just endless possibilities of combinations of people's creative efforts that could come into existence. So I kind of see this as maybe the bud of a new, exciting thing, comparable to being around when the first superhero characters were being generated.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no corporate overlord having to go. We don't have to go up a ladder in order to get permission. For example, obviously because Brian Bull and I talk pretty regularly, I talk directly to the creator, and I just say, hey, you're not going to mind if I put this in here, and I specifically say what we're going to do. And I think we've gotten to the point where we have an understanding. These characters pop up, they're cameos. They typically will pop up in one panel. It doesn't really affect the other universe, but we get messages all the time from people who are like, so how do the Jawbreakers, so is Walmart the president of the Jawbreakers universe? And I thought, he might be. I don't know. I mean, if you think he is, that is funny. Like, that's really cool. And Marmaduke fan, you had the best reference. You said a silly energy, which is exactly what something like that is. But if Mr. Marvel is listening out there, so in Black Ops 2, I'm returning the favor, Mr. Marvel. This has already gone to print. Wanpool is the hardest to find Easter egg in it, but he is in it. Okay, so he is. He does exist in my universe because you were so kind enough to put one of my characters in yours. So I actually threw you a bone. So since you're in here, you'll know that. But yeah, that kind of silly energy where there's no lawyers to talk to, there's no threat of legal ramifications because we know we're all friends. We want this, and like if a Marmaduke fan creates his own book, like obviously it's like, yeah, you tell me when, and it does not take me. We have to draw crowd shots all the time. It does not take us, much time to fill those crowds with people that we know or properties that we love. It is no skin off my back to do that, and I love doing it. I think it's fantastic, it's fabulous, and it really warms the heart because it shows that we respect each other enough to do that, and that's an energy and a vitality that I think that people at the Big Two are lacking. I know that Richard, Cap Cummings, and Doug Ernst have touched on this, but it seems like they're very low energy. They don't want to promote their books. They seem almost embarrassed by it. They talk mostly politics, and then if you're lucky, they'll talk about their book the same day that it's coming out. Whereas us, I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. There's so much high energy. Once a book is about to come out or a campaign, we're ramping up. We're talking about it day after day after day. And it's not just because we want to sell, but because we are so energetic about what we're doing. So I think that's great. And like Cody, obviously, you literally like came in full force and you just kind of took over the reins, no pun intended, and people love it. People like seeing that type of thing. We feed off each other's energy.
Oh no, absolutely. I do my best to promote as many other works as I can too, because of the love I get. There's no reason not to. In fact, it'd be very wrong of me not to, and that's kind of an issue that's been coming up last couple days that we don't need to touch on. But the fact of trying to keep this energy alive in this community and to spread it far and wide, and that I think our group here is doing really well about doing that, and people are seeing, noticing, and backing because of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Dollar Bin, do you want to jump in here?
Oh yeah. I'm still just kind of in awe that I'm even here. I'm just watching the stream and I'm like, this is great. Oh wait, I'm supposed to be in the stream. I'm in the stream. Yeah, it's really an amazing time right now with what this community has been doing for these indie projects. Like it's just, I'm still in awe that this is all happening. And just yeah. That everybody, as soon as I first saw Cody, I was just like, man, the hustle with this guy is insane. Like he is just out here, just pounding that digital pavement, promoting this. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm still worried I'm shoving it too far down the throats of the community, but so far so good. Nobody's
No,
yet.
you definitely don't come off as pushy, and that's a hard thing, because I've seen, like, you know, I'll go and follow somebody, and then a minute later they're in my DM just being like, hey, we got this documentary about mosquitoes killing people in this country, you got to check it out. And it's there's no sense of nuance, and I'm just like, do you even know who you're talking to? Like, I don't want to watch your documentary. No. And you know, there's always a sense of you never get the feeling from you like you're pushing it on people. At least that's my opinion. It always feels organic whenever I see you popping in the conversation. And first and foremost, what won me over to you was not that you're pushing the comic book. I believe I just saw you just popping into a thread with people, just talking comics and just shooting the breeze. And it was the personality that won me over. And I was like, oh, this guy's got a comic book, I should check it out. And just that was that's what pulls me in, is the personality behind Jack.
Well, I most definitely appreciate all those very kind words.
Oh yeah.
I try my best to make sure I can spot a good opportunity to promote. I won't lie. I know when I can direct the conversation towards looking at my book, but I do my best never to just do that. I'm talking to somebody. I should try and get to know them, even if it's a brief touch, even if it's just a little touch on base, feel who they are. And then I'm like, hey, check this out if you want. It's free.
So there's a way that you do it, and I obviously do it, and Rags does it. So for people listening in the stream who probably want some advice, like, hey, I want to use Twitter as a platform for networking, but I don't want to shill. Like, what's the proper way to do it? So I think that you guys both touched on something very good. I think the formula is this. If you click on our profiles, you will see a lot of promotion of ourselves, where I am actively tweeting and I'm saying, hey, here, check out this new video I did. Hey, here's a new thing I'm releasing. What do you think of it? Or, hey, here's something that's available now. But you'll notice that whenever I go to other people's comments, like when I go to like Marmaduke Fan, or if I go to Dollar Bin reviews, or if I go to Jack Irons, I am there to shoot the breeze. Like, I am not there to promote. I am there to reply in terms of an interesting comment, or I am there to share a funny GIF or a funny meme. And that's how you establish camaraderie. It's the idea that, hey, my main profile is kind of like a storefront, but occasionally I leave my storefront because I need to go like run some errands or something, and then I go into like someone else's neck of the woods. And when I'm in someone else's neck of the woods, I am a guest. Like, I am there, and I am there to interact. I am not there necessarily to push, unless there is an active call or an opportunity for promotion. And I know that
Yep.
that some people have they haven't mastered that, or they don't quite know. I have one friend in particular who he asked for that advice because he said, "Hey, I kind of feel awkward because I went into someone's stream and I went to someone's Twitter and I said, hey, you might want to take a look at my book,' and I got silence. And I said, well, the reason you got silence was they were talking about like burritos, and you were trying to promote your book, but your book had nothing to do with burritos, so it looks like you're shilling or you look like a bot or something like that." And he was like, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Yeah, it's you treat it. It takes a while. There's a tiny bit of a learning curve, but after like a few weeks on Twitter, you get the hang of it. You see how people interact, and it tends to be pretty straightforward after that."
Well, definitely convinced is why Diversity in Comics just doesn't even listen to me anymore. Because when I first started out, I was just hopping into his comments and being like, "I just posted a review. You guys should check it out." And that's not what you do. Everybody else was just looking at me too. They're just like, "What is this guy? This big jabroni just coming over here with this video?"
You want me to tell you? I'll tell you who's gonna be the next big thing. The next big thing is gonna be whoever Booker T is on Diversity in Comics chat. So there's a guy. There's a guy named.
You got me with one of those earlier today.
Oh my gosh! There's a guy named Booker T, and all he does is he goes into Diversity Comics' chat, and he'll just tag people, and he's like, "Jack Irons, you're looking jacked today," and he'll say like, "Dollar Bin guy, like you're looking good, you're looking jacked," and Diversity in Comics always calls up on him, and he's like, "Look, everyone's in the stream. This is really cool. Thanks for a super chat, Booker T, telling people they look jacked," and I'm like, that's so funny to me that the moment Booker T is like, "Hey, you're looking jacked. Check out my book," people are gonna be like, "Oh, we gotta see this." I was like,
Yeah.
That guy is primed. That guy is primed to be the next guy. Same thing with Cecil, you know. Cecil used to be a troll, honestly, and then finally, people are like, "What's this guy about?" So I mean, there's a bit of ice breaking involved, but it's actually not that hard. You just if you're in there to have fun and you're there to kind of just be one of the guys, then you kind of find out that everyone has a place. This is there's not really a table. It's more like a picnic. It's kind of a wide audience that everyone has. But yeah, everyone just finds their niche eventually.
Well, I literally picked this username so I could tweet at Diversity in Comics and make fun of them for not knowing what it meant. And now look what it's done. It's ruined my life.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, boy, I am so excited for Jack Irons. I am so excited for this community. I mean, we were getting into some of that earlier with energy, and I can just tell you guys that for a while in SGW Art School, I kind of felt like I was going nowhere. And they didn't kill me entirely. I kept drawing, but it was sort of like discovering Diversity in Comics and then discovering the energy in this community was a reawakening moment for me, where I had been drawing the whole time, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to dedicate my drawing to. And this is maybe a minor spoiler, but I don't like to do like mini Easter eggs throughout a book, but I want to do like a giant 2-page spread Easter egg that's like my thank you to this community, and because it reawakened me to coming back to my I didn't leave art, but it reawakened me to coming back to comic art specifically.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that no, it's not really a spoiler because there's no names. There's no names that are being said. But I was talking to Doug Ernst, and one thing that he and I talked about was how whenever there's an idea, it is never just one person who says it and then everyone repeats it. It's as if someone says it and we were all thinking the same thing. And so there is an undercurrent that's happening that's making us do this. And one of the things that I've noticed is that there are other YouTubers who are planning their own comics. They haven't announced it yet, but I'll talk to this person over here, and it's like, yeah, I'm working on a comic. And I'll talk to this person over here, and it's like, don't tell anyone I'm working on a comic. And here I am in the middle thinking, like, literally, you're all trying to keep this secret, and you're all thinking the same thing. That is so cool. And the reason they're doing it is because vacuums are abhorred, and creative vacuums are abhorred. So I think what's happening is that a lot of people who are in our affiliation, they are so sick of the vacuum of characters and original storytelling coming from the major companies that they said, I know what a hero consists of. I know how to tell a story. If these people aren't going to do it, I will. Like, I have enough know-how to get this off the ground. And I think that that's the part that's really, really neat, is that you have all these people who are hatching kind of their own plans, and that is fantastic. I think that they should go for it because obviously going on YouTube and doing critiques means that you do talk a somewhat big game, but now you get the chance to show it. And I think that that is going to be the most exciting thing, at least probably in the next year, seeing some of these ideas come to fruition.
Oh, absolutely. I really think I'm gonna have something special with issue 2 come out, and I'm really stoked to see all the works that are in process and on their way. Slick Jimmy's Sugar Lightspeed, Little Girl Lethal. I'm super stoked for. He's a great guy. He's been supportive and has been shilling me forever. There's Sean Campbell's The Ferryman, which has been getting off the ground lately. Hopefully it'll be funded here soon. He also has an Indiegogo. He's a great guy. There's just so many works. Juan Pool's on his way, since you were just talking about Juan Pool, so keep an eye out on Juan Pool. There's just so many great projects coming out that are fun and have energy that's just different from anything out there in the mainstream.
Thank you for name dropping all of these great projects coming out. Yeah, I haven't checked out The Ferryman yet, and it's sort of like maybe like a similar thing to yours, where I just start seeing people retweeting The Ferryman. And I see art from The Ferryman. I haven't checked it out yet, and now I've got like the mental note. Okay, I'm gonna freaking check out The Ferryman and see what's going on here.
I spoke to him last night, and he sent me the PDF of some of the pages, and I started reading it, but the pitch of that story is one of the most original pitches I've ever heard. I mean, this is like movie potential. It's about
I love it.
It is such an original story. It's the idea of what if you could have an implant based in your body where it knows, like we have gone to the point in society where we know what we think is the closest thing to the anatomical position of where the soul is, where we can actually take your life and we can actually distill it into a digital format so that when you die, you can have basically your soul encased in a digital form and put into a digital afterlife. And I don't know, it is so, like, when I heard that pitch and it's on the campaign page, I thought that gets the almonds working, because I'm like, okay, that sounds really cool. As far as where you can take it into either an action or a philosophy realm or some combination of the two. So I haven't read the PDF yet, so in case he's listening right now, I did get it. I just haven't had a chance to sit down and look at it, but I've read the first 2 or 3 pages, and I like what I see. So again, wealth of creativity. Again, creativity abhors a vacuum, and people are going to fill it with some very robust ideas. There is no stagnation, because if we, the customer, if we don't like what we're seeing out there, we have time to percolate and do it on our own. There is no creative vacuum on this side of things.
Colonel Comic says that Beatdown Girl is another indie comic that we should be looking at. You guys know it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, I've been seeing that last few days. It looks really good, and the art looks really fun. I don't know too much about it. Any of you guys know about the story behind it?
Not me.
No, I don't know too much about the story, just that the art, like I saw it, I'm like, yeah, this looks fun.
Well, if Beatdown Girl, if the creator is out there, I think I'm not going to speak for #1 Marmaduke fan, but I think that there you go. Like, there's a captive audience where if you ever need to contact a YouTuber or you need to get your stuff out there, definitely, since it was mentioned, I will take a look at it. I'll see what that's about. It has not popped up on my radar yet, so I'm glad that someone mentioned it.
I definitely think that communication is the key to it. I mean, because we all have finite time. I want talking with comic book creators to be a important dimension of what I do on this channel. I mean, I just have to recognize that I've got finite time in the day. But yes, definitely, you can't. It doesn't. Don't shill, but it doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't hurt to have a conversation with someone. And I'll probably give you a frank opinion, but I want to see what people in this community are creating. And this all feeds into what I think is maybe the most important thing we could possibly do. If all we do is we just bash on comic books we don't like, it's like it's like Ego's line in the Pixar movie Ratatouille. You know, our criticism
Yes.
probably our criticism designating something a piece of junk is probably of less value than the piece of junk itself. Thump, is that you doing like a rabbit thump?
That's, yeah,
I hear like a clap sound.
I don't know what that was.
Okay.
it was the clapping from Friends.
I just imagined that was like your avatar was
Clap
real.
in chat.
But yeah, I was definitely, I was kind of going off on this a while ago, and it just started as just I was just complaining about getting kind of burnt out on the roasts. I love a roast. I love a good roast is great. But if it's like 80% of the content I'm seeing from these channels and channels of, people I love, diversity in comics, anybody, I just get burnt out on the roasts. I'd rather see them devote their time to raising everybody up around them that could just use a little more exposure. Yeah, it'd be a much better use of our time.
A roast identifies negative things in storytelling, which I think is critically important for artists and writers to think about. My experience is the value of critique has been devalued to the point where if you say, I don't like something, that's interpreted as you denigrating the artist or the writer as a person. The purpose of critique is to it's actually kind of the only good reason for you to go to a liberal arts program is to hear people who know what they're talking about tell you, hey, look, you got to stop copying Dragon Ball Z, and you got to learn your human proportions. Okay?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because as an artist, and this is just in case people are listening who have portfolios that they're planning on taking to people for review, if your portfolio consists of characters that are drawn in the Dragon Ball Z style, you had better draw very well in the Dragon Ball Z style because that's probably the number one thing is that we have a lot of people who come to us at conventions who are like out of high school. So there are a lot of like 18 to 20-year-olds, and they think that drawing in Dragon Ball Z style is the new hotness. Like that's how you make it. And it's like, there's a line of people who draw exactly like that. And part of art is both establishing a unique style, but also showing a variety and a mastery of technique. So being able to diversify your portfolio to reflect that and to show that you're capable of something that's not just kind of a pastiche of someone else will take you a long way.
Definitely, I call it facilitation, or I call it mix and match. Like whenever I would get in arguments with art students, like they would say something like, you do trace or you don't trace. You do use 3D models or you don't use 3D models. You sketch from life or you sketch from photographs. I always just say, yes. Do all of the things as long as you're doing something, because that's how you get your 10,000 hours. But don't commit yourself to just doing one type of thing. So I would have an art teacher who would literally have us trace a comic book panel, line for line, down to the finest detail. And so I wouldn't trace for my own work, just for obvious, copyright reasons. But the experience of doing that, it's sort of like you are making an intense study of a particular artist's style. And then that goes into the back of your mind. And then you do that with another artist and you get another style. And I think that's the way you teach yourself things that you can describe, but it's hard to get the knowledge from your brain to your hand. So you can say, oh, this artist has a sketchy style, this artist has a tightly controlled style, but it's the action of trying it where your hand learns how to do it, and then your hand becomes more competent than even your mind is at passing this onto your own page.
That's actually really interesting. I don't want to go too far off topic, but I want to piggyback off that for anyone listening who is an aspiring artist. What number one Marmaduke fan said is very important. I think that in school you're kind of if you didn't go to an art school, you're kind of discouraged from tracing. From art classes, they say, yeah, don't trace. Tracing is bad. Well, there's a reason why light boxes exist. So if you go on Amazon or if you go to Hobby Lobby, you'll find these things called light boxes where essentially they're like lighted pads and they were meant for tracing. Now, what he said is very important because I actually learned self-taught doing what he said. I would let's say I really like Adam Hughes's art. And in order to know why you like something, you have to get into the mind of the artist and ask yourself, what is a thing that separates a Frank Cho from an Adam Hughes? They both draw pretty women. They both draw pretty women very well. But if you have an Adam Hughes and a Frank Cho next to each other, you can tell. You can tell who is who. And it has nothing to do with one being better than the other, but there are fundamental differences in how they approach it technique-wise. And so that's true. One thing you do is you learn. When you trace, you're getting into the mind of the artist and you're asking yourself, okay, as I'm doing this, I'm in his head. What is going on here? For one thing, like what Adam Hughes does that's really interesting is he uses very thick outer lines. So he is very good at establishing his silhouette, like his overall composition of the body if you were to just see a tracing of the outskirts of it, an outline, it's very solid. It has gravity, it has weight, and he accentuates that. And then on the inside, he'll fill it in with like thinner lines and more subtle gradients. And being able to do that helps you get into the mind of the artist. So if you're trying to draw in a Dragon Ball Z style, again, I don't necessarily discourage it just on its face, but I would encourage something more akin to what number one Marmaduke fan said. It's easy to tell when someone is aping the style of Dragon Ball Z versus someone who has mastered it, because they know what makes it unique, and it's almost like a counterfeit where you can't tell the difference because they're so seamless when they're put side to side. So I just want to interject there and say that was a very good piece of advice that you gave.
No, absolutely. I would agree too. I would say that you really have to. You want to take great influence from as many good places as you can, but you can't become that influence. You're making yourself. So you shouldn't be trying to be somebody else. You should be trying to be you through learning your own way through all these different people, like Akira Toriyama, as you're saying, or whoever else you like. I really think you're doing yourself a disservice if you dedicate yourself to acting as and making art as somebody else instead of yourself.
Unless that's someone's Rembrandt, then you get a number one Marmaduke fan excuse. If you just want to copy Rembrandt all day.
There you go.
But the reason I say that is I kind of look at Rembrandt as this is kind of my own thesis, but I sort of look at Rembrandt as kind of maybe one of the primary figures you could look at as the drawer, the person who draws, is distinct from the person who paints. And for Rembrandt, the thing that made him different was he would have like this thick impasto paint. You know, he'd build it up. You could see it almost like dripping off the canvas, and he'd have this really warm, dark light that he's famous for. But in his drawings, he also has this quick application where he clearly drew it in 3 seconds, and you understand everything about the form. And just my personal bias, I see that as kind of like the highest artistic achievement that anyone can ever achieve. But the real point is that he accomplished it through drawing constantly until it became second nature to him. And there are multiple styles you can master, but the act of mastery is really just the act of doing it over and over and over again until it becomes second nature, but not getting stuck in only doing one thing over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, and that's one thing I had to learn when I was doing in merchandising. I had to learn how to draw in very different styles. By that point, that's what I was doing anyway, because essentially I was trying to be a chameleon, so like an art chameleon, just already doing that. It served our purpose very well for satire and parody. It served us very well for merchandising. But one of the problems I ran into when we were starting to do our own work, both on Thump and My Hero Macadamia, especially the latter, was I had not developed a unique style. And so even now, as I'm doing these future works, it's still constantly evolving, because I had been so used to adapting other people that I'm having to kind of redistill myself to fundamentals. And like what number one Marmaduke fan was saying is that's very important. I uploaded a video about 2 weeks ago where I showed kind of two ways of how I approach figure drawing. One is I use a very thick line, and I put a silhouette. Like I try to draw the silhouette of the person. And that's kind of like a forest for the trees type thing, where you're just trying to establish the shape and the form of the individual, versus probably what number one Marmaduke fan just mentioned, a Rembrandtian tougher thing, which is to take a very thin pen and basically trying to construct out of scribbles human form in its most basic sense. And that latter one is actually the tougher one, because you're trying to basically create form using not very much, having very little to work with. So drawing, even though I feel like it's a technical skill that everyone can learn, the irony about it is the better you get at it, the more simplistic your form and figure can be. And even in its simplicity, you can tell what's going on.
Good thought. Now we kind of turned this into an art stream by accident.
Leaving me out.
Well, Cody, you do draw. I mean, you did some of the concept art for Jack Irons. So I know that you let
call it that.
Well, your art. I believe in. I agree with Tim on this. You did your Tim did his Periscope, where he described drawing as a skill that people develop, not necessarily a innate talent. But so what I wanted to ask Cody about Maximiliano Diallo, you've told us before about how you have kind of that Stan Lee approach where Diallo gets to provide a lot of ingenuity and creativity to his own world, to your world. He's devoting his creativity to adding this sort of visual vibrancy to Jack Irons' world. One thing I'm curious is there still maybe like even like a doodle level conceptualization for you for Jack Irons?
What Max likes, which I agree, is he likes me to go and pull some picture inspiration and attach them to panels or to ideas or to people that are going to be in the book. I did that with the horses. I did that with Jack. I did that with his weapon. I did that with the British man who shows up. I did that with the natives in the book. So, I mean, I give him ideas, but I don't tell him how to utilize them. He just wants to have an idea of what I'm thinking about, and then he makes it his own.
Fantastic. Well, I am just so excited for Jack Irons. There are 9 days left, so if anyone in the chat has not supported this project yet, I really hope you'll add this one to the list of campaigns that you are backing. Because I know energy and I know intensity when I see it. It's like it comes across in the creator's voice, in how they present themselves, in how much time they devote to things. And when I see creative energy, I want to get on that, because it almost feels like I'm helping the next Batman or the next Samurai Jack come into existence in a way. And I sense that in Cody. I sense that in Thump as I'm starting to get into dollar bin reviews. Boy, I would say it was kind of breaking news for me that dollar bin reviews has a history in comics. So there's that in individuals and in the group in this community as a whole. There is vibrant creative energy, and I think that's the thing that has been missed by critics and professionals who just dismiss people in this group. They're missing how much creativity is coming out of this group, and I think that's going to be something that lasts a long time beyond just our brief Twitter interactions. What we create is going to really build something for the future that we can be proud of.
Yeah.
I think we've been at it for about 2 hours, and I don't want to kick anyone off as long as we have like lots of things to talk about. So I would suggest let's just go go one at a time and add anything that's on our minds, and we can talk until we're tired or need to go. But let's just casual conversation about our thoughts on art, comics. Sweet. Cody, since you're our guest of honor, so maybe my little question for you is, Samurai Jack. I am obsessed with Samurai Jack. Please tell me that Samurai Jack has something to do with like Cowboy Jack.
Namesake, straight up. I use Jack because of Samurai Jack.
Yes.
Nice.
My boy.
My homage. He's a huge influence on my writing and on my character and on the story of trying to put a fish out of water in the future.
Nice.
And maybe so now that I've outed you as my fellow Jackhead. So one of the unique aspects of Jack was its visual presentation. Like it would start in a field with a moody light, and then Jack walks. It's really easy to make fun of almost because it's so striking, it's so visual, it's so unusual. So tell us a little bit about maybe like the visual imagination part of it, the part that has less to do with saying the themes of my story are this, and more the look of my story is this. How do you get into that world?
Oh man, I wish I could say that was my world. I have to give that to Diallo. I just had general ideas and concepts. I'm all about the feel. That's really why I think that comes through with my writing is that I don't really describe the environments and they don't really talk to each other. It's all Diallo. He's just such an amazing artist, and he's got some great inspirations, and they just clicked. In terms of, I could describe tone, but once again, that's more feeling than direct, looking at something. So it's a tough one for me. It's a tough one. When I was visualizing it, I didn't visualize it. I just thought through the story. In all honesty, when I was making Jack was the only thing I wanted to visualize. I had this idea of a big tough guy with long hair and a cowboy hat and a big metal duster coat, and I just drew that as best I could, and kept writing. And when I met my artist, I gave him that. He did some concepts, and I was hooked with his version of it, and I've trusted him ever since.
I'm just going to speak as like the token Southern Baptist comics gate, but that is like a divine providential moment there, because Diallo has captured this feel which clicks so much with the like the virtue or these kind of storytelling concerns you have for Jack Irons. And even though it sounds like you kind of write minimally and trust the artist, yet you are thoughtful about these things from your history in the medium. So it just tells me that your writing style, you must be very good at working with your collaborators to be able to pull this kind of passion out of them. That it shows
Well,
up.
I'm only as good as they are. So if they're pulling passion out of me, I can do it the same, and vice versa. And once again, as you said, divine providence, fate has been so kind, and luck, and my hard work has actually paid off, which it doesn't always, no matter what people say. Sometimes you can work real hard at something that's not going to happen. But I have been really lucky, and a lot of us in this community are really lucky, and we're building an environment where that hard work will be rewarded, not can be rewarded.
Yes.
And I'm so glad to see that.
Dollar bin reviews. So, I mean, I saw you in the chat. I said, we got to have you on. You did something significant in help. I think lots of people made me aware of Jack Irons, but you did something significant in, picking it up and, using your voice on YouTube to identify this as something we should be looking into. So I don't know, tell us a bit about, like, when you go to Twitter and when you look at these projects, do you pick something based on whether it kind of like sparks something in your imagination? Do you look at their behavior? Tell us a little bit about the process of, as a YouTuber, how do you identify good work?
Well, a lot of it started with the Move the Needle hashtag. I would use that to just kind of, just get a bunch of stuff in front of me, see what people are sharing, and then every once in a while, I'd see that hashtag, kind of lead me in a different direction. And that was a good jumping off point to just get into a lot of different threads, see what people are promoting and what they're talking about. And it led me in some bad directions. Initially, I had a comic sent to me. It was like one of my first reviews from a guy called Tyrant Comics. I don't know if you're familiar with that guy, but it didn't turn out good because he sent me his comic to review. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll definitely check it out, man. Because I thought, like, I looked on his page. He had like 14,000 followers. And I'm like, yeah, I'll check it out. You'll share it with them. It'll be great. And no, that didn't go well. So I was originally going to just I swore off, like, taking in the indie projects. I wasn't sure if that was a safe thing to do. But yeah, then I found Jack. And Jack it was really by accident. I forget what the thread was. It was like Trigon.
Same here.
Or something like that.
Yeah,
like,
probably Trigon.
Yeah, like people were talking about Trigon, and I'm like, yeah, Trigon's great. All my friends hate Trigon. I got to get new friends. And yeah, we just started talking about that. And then I just navigated over to his page. And that's usually what happens with a lot of the people that I end up talking with on Twitter. And we'll just start talking. And when we hit it off, then I'll go look on their page and see, like, oh, what are they doing? What's going on with them? Do they got anything in the works that I should know about? And that's just how it happened. It was a nice little bit of divine providence. It felt like just everything just coming together at the perfect amount of time. We started talking about his previous campaign. He only got like $10 raised on it, and I'm like, well, yeah, I gotta help this guy out. The book shows a lot of promise. It's only at 700, so we can do a lot better than that. And yeah, I didn't want to take a lot of credit for it getting taken off, because it takes away from the hustle that Cody's been doing, just promoting this every day. And it's really just an impressive work ethic. That's another reason why I wanted to work extra hard on my reviews, to really promote his stuff as, in the best way that I could. So it's infectious, basically, is what I'm saying. If you really believe in what you're doing, it's going to come over even through Twitter. It's going to come over through text, and I'll be like, yeah, this person really cares about comics. They care about art. And yeah, that 100%. When I get a feeling like that, that's when I know that I probably want to review their stuff.
Oh, I got a comment here from Scotty Richards Studio, who says Galaxy Rangers gotta be some inspiration there. So I don't know what Galaxy Ranger is, but Cody, does Galaxy Rangers
That's the second one that's come up besides Brave Star, and I am not familiar with Galaxy Rangers yet. That's another one I have to remedy. I just caught up with trying to learn what Brave Star was. I've seen it come up. It looks kind of like a Western space Power Rangers.
Yeah,
But
kind of.
I'm not very familiar with it. It kind of looks like that though. Maybe more like a. No. I think I said it the best I can from what I can think of.
Cody,
but I've heard they have a huge fan base. From what
Cody,
I've seen.
I have one for you. Okay.
Oh, please.
Gungrave.
I'm aware of Gungrave. I did not watch Gungrave, and now I'm really feeling I'm just out of the loop, aren't I?
It is going to if you can get it, I think you can get it pretty cheap on Blu-ray on Amazon, and it's limited. It's a book-ended series, which means that it was only basically X number of episodes, and it's very short. You can actually binge watch it in a day. You won't regret it. I forgot about that one.
I won't, because I've seen the images, and it looks right up my alley. Like, perfectly.
It is phenomenal. It was the last before I gave up on anime. Before I got back into it, before One Punch Man and My Hero Academia, Gungrave was the last full anime I watched. And I was in my undergrad in college, and it is incredible. That is, in my opinion, one of the greatest and most overlooked animes of all time. And I think it was overlooked because it was such a short series. It was based off a video game, but it is great. I would definitely check it out.
Someone in chat is saying it takes place in the Trigun universe, and I think that's why I'm aware of it.
Oh, that's
yes.
cool.
Like in the future.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Saying, or they are saying, but I can't confirm that, but I do think that's how I had heard of that, was through my Trigun fandom.
Yes, it's made by the same person who made Trigun.
Nice.
Yeah, so then it's gonna be right up my alley.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking a second ago about other indie creators, so I got a couple more shout outs I would really like to do for these people who have been really helping me out. Sporkman, if you guys aren't familiar, Sporkman is a great comic. The guy is just absolutely just one of the kindest fellows on Twitter, working with me and working with the community and supporting us. His book looks great. The character design is outrageous. I would check him out. I would check out Dragoon Knight Aldrake by Wenger. He's been excellent to me as well, and has been great promoting his work and promoting my work and just being a nice dude. Let's see if there's anybody else specifically. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anybody who's listening. I feel terrible about that. I'm trying to get as many names in as possible in my chance here. I think that's going to do for now. People can let me know, though, and if I get another chance, I will certainly put you out there, because you guys have been amazing to me.
There was a couple. I think it was Alpha Dog Studios that he just sent me some stuff to look at. It looked pretty promising.
Alpha Dog, yeah.
Yeah.
And, his work looks really great too.
Yeah, I've been meaning to get to that. That's been in my inbox for a minute. And I just actually did a review today for these folks, Elixir Comics, and they got some good stuff out. It was like a boogeyman monster in the closet type deal, but it was nice. It was drawn from a lot of different horror elements. So if you like horror, you definitely check that out.
Cool, and I think Case File Arkham too. I know that they're kind of in our orbit, and I think those people are really cool. I know that Umbrella Guy really likes him as well, but I think if you like the horror genre, the people who make Case File Arkham, that's supposed to be a really excellent book as well.
Yeah, I keep hearing about that.
Yeah. No, there's just so many great titles available in our community. It's a shame they're not more well known, and also bringing in the bucks. So I think us at this level really need to keep doing our best to pay back. And from the energy and feeling I get from you guys, I'm certain we will.
A dimension of this, I think, is important. I do not want to talk about Twitter drama from recent. Yes. This relates to Twitter drama from recent weeks, but pretty much what people are debating about is how do people get attention? Who who's going to succeed or fail in the comic book industry. And something I did like a really brief kind of like spur of the moment video where I tried to talk about the principles people were debating about without directly referencing the Twitter drama. And my whole point was that, you know, success in comic book industry isn't something that we can fight each other until we get it. We have to earn it, but we also have to be like supportive of one another while recognizing that, you know, not everyone's going to be able to be an indie comic book review channel. You know, so I have committed to spending time talking about the indie comic scene because I just see that as critically important. But it's also a kind of like a second wave or second fork of what I'm trying to accomplish with my channel. I think this gets to the diversity of all the people involved. There are different tastes, there are different genres, there are different politics and religions, and, you know, origin stories and age groups. This is the most diverse group I've seen, especially when I compare it to Gamergate. I think that the significant thing that distinguishes us is this diversity of just sheer variety in ages and voices and ideas and approaches. And I think that's going to be the strength for us, is that we are now aware of each other. We can, if one genre of book isn't for this person, it might be for another person. And I think it's going to be really important for us to keep hosting these conversations with one another so that we can identify great work and build us towards the point where we're not beholden to the big two or to, I don't know, nasty political elements within the comic book industry. We support one another.
Yeah, very well said. I actually watched your video on that this morning, so I was getting caught up, and I just thought, yeah, there was pretty much no other way, no better way to eloquate it. So I think you kind of summarized that very nicely.
Thank you. Well, I feel like we've had a really good conversation. So I would say let's share some maybe closing thoughts about you know, the greatness of Jack Irons, why people should support it. You know, the YouTubers. Let's just go. Let's go one at a time. So POTUSThump, what would you like to share with our audience who's watching?
Yeah, so for anyone who's listening who has not checked out Jack Irons, do not be fooled by what appears to be a sci-fi cowboy western. It is that in its primary bloodline, but beneath the surface, after you check out the first chapter, you're going to notice that there is an undercurrent of immortality where there's tales to be told of a man who has died multiple deaths and has remembered it every single time, and he's taking that into the current present, which is, I guess, our future. And so that plays a lot into his role. And as we've talked about during this stream, that story may not remain in a cowboy setting for much longer. There might be some prospect moving forward for him to explore the far-reaching future and other genres as well. So this was a project that was done over a decade of passionate thought, and you can really see it in the writing. So check it out. Chapter 1 is free for people to look at. The campaign is for issue 2 and for colors on issue 1. It's a really good project, and as a person who has worked in the industry off and on as a merchandising artist and as a cover artist, I will say that this is a very high caliber project worth checking out.
Thank you. Yeah. Do you want to add anything, Cody?
Oh, well, I besides the very kind words from somebody who's doing really well in the same industry, which I really appreciate. I agree. If you're into westerns, please let that hook you, because it's there. There's no argument there. But I'm trying to make something that's so much more, and that I'm hoping can appeal to most everybody on some level, or eventually have something within its universe that will appeal to almost everybody. And that's the goal. And I really want to do it through the hard work we've already done, and through the great community we have here, and hopefully the growing community that we keep fostering.
Dollar bin reviews. So shill your channel, because you are criminally undersubbed. And
yes.
Also, any thoughts you'd like to add about our friend POTUSThump, or our friend Cody and Jack Irons?
Well, I guess just in general, it's just my my thoughts on everything. But this community gets a lot of criticism, a lot of flack for being about hate and shutting people down. And really, when I've started talking to all these folks, it's the complete opposite. Like, they're about raising everybody up. And I think that's really an important way to show everybody in the world that we're really about just raising people up, to take this book by these first-time creators and just show the world that we're about the good art and the good storytelling, stuff that is solid and resonates with a lot of people. Yeah, and also, go sub to my channel. I do some cool stuff over there. But yeah. Man, it is so tough when you got to be on a live stream and you can't like cut and start over again. Oh man.
I know
No worries, you're doing great, man. This is my first one myself.
Yeah. This is my inaugural first live stream ever. So this is a whirlwind, and I just really appreciate that. All the love that everybody's been sending my way. Only having a month-old channel, it's insane. Yeah. So it's Dollar Bin Reviews, and you can go over there. We just had the 100 subscriber weekend, so I just reviewed some nice books from 1956. If you're all about that, yeah, I got Action Comics, Batman, and Donald Duck by Carl Barks.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Man, you beautiful. Wait, are you a bear or a dog? I need to know.
I mean, I'm a little bit of both, but yeah, my avatar is a bear. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you beautiful bear honorary giant dog. I love Carl Barks.
Oh, okay. Man. It's surprising, but the Carl Barks review I just did was like my most emotional review. I was like, oh man, the life that he lived was insane. And that's what really drew me to my man Cody, is he's been through real adversity and he translates all of that into his book, and it comes across so well. The guy he's likable like Han Solo, even though I guess that's not necessarily a compliment these days to call somebody like Han Solo, which is sad. But yeah, like it's there's so many great influences in this book, and I really want to see where it goes.
Our friend, the amazing Eric Hutcliffe, hadn't encountered your channel before, and he's going to check you out. And anyone who doesn't know our boy Eric, he is just like artist friend of the community. He did some of the very first fan art I ever got for the Marmaduke fan channel, and really swell and thoughtful artist in our community. So we got you a quality new viewer.
All right, I appreciate it. That's what it's all about.
I saw a couple comments in the live stream asking about physical edition, and I think I answered that. But just in case anyone missed it when we talked about it earlier, Cody, do you want to tell them about how people will be getting physical editions of Jack Irons?
Oh, absolutely. So what happened is I did not find my publisher until my campaign had begun. So instead of making new perks and having to contact all my previous backers and let them know and rework that, I decided to just make it part of my publisher and I actually. We decided to make it just part of a tier that would still make us the proper money to send it out. So at $25 or higher, you get your first issue colored now, thanks to this wonderful group of backers, sent out hopefully shortly after the campaign ends. I'm hoping only about 2 or 3 weeks, but we got to wait for colors to come in. And after that, we're hoping to have issue number 2 done within the year, I'm hoping, and then we'll send those on out. I'll be contacting, my publisher and I will be contacting every backer to get shipping information and such if it's not already easily accessible. And so far, it hasn't blown out of proportion to the point that I need to hire anybody to help me with that. But we'll see. I'm willing to do that. We will make sure you guys get your issues. No question. I want them just as bad, and I will make sure you can get them. Hopefully, they'll also be at Comic Cons here pretty soon. Some in California and definitely New Mexico, where hopefully you can come down and see me here in October.
If you get it out before Jawbreakers, you earn roasting privileges for life on our.
Oh
yeah, I know. I mean, number 1's already ready. Basically ready. We just got to get the colors, and then we can go straight to print. So I don't see us not being able to do that, in all honesty. But we'll see. I don't have the money that he does. So we'll definitely see. But I also don't have the demand. So I would give them a break on that.
Well, I want to see you build that demand, and so like POTUSThump said this ages ago, near the start of the stream, but you have gone from having very little traction, like $10 on your first Indiegogo, to having definite traction. And the thing about traction is I want to see that grow. I want to see you hold on to this audience you've captured by interacting so professionally with people. And I want to see that. I want to see that build. I want to see you get stinking rich. I want to see you break the Cyberfrog record. I want success. I want Comicsgate to win until we're tired of winning, and then we decide we're not tired of winning. And Jack Irons, I say we must make this win. Everybody in chat, please support it.
Oh, well, thank you so much, everyone. I mean, the support, once again, outrageous. It went from 0 to 60 within maybe a week and a half. And that's just been outrageous, and it hasn't stopped yet. So I don't see it stopping anytime soon, as long as my team and I can keep delivering a quality product, and I can keep getting a hold of all these nice folks and talking to them and growing our community.
Yeah.
Wunderbar. Cody, have you had? I thought you mentioned to me that you've had some live streams with some other YouTubers. Would you recommend we go check those live streams out too to hear a bit more?
Okay, so today somebody else I did a slight interview with. It's available on my channel. I don't have it easily accessible.
I will link it. I will link
whoever's
it in the
out there.
I will link it.
That would be great.
Yeah.
He took the time to edit and do my first review, so that was the first appearance of my voice on this interwebs here. So that was kind of neat, and I've had a couple other people help me trying to figure out getting this working properly, and I thought I had, but now I did. Anywho, so there's not really anything else out there to watch just at the moment, but that one video and this amazing live stream that we did today. Friday, I have another live stream with on Sporkman's channel, so you guys can look forward to that. I'll be promoting it on Twitter and such, and yeah, so it's not the last time you folks will hear from me.
Well, you did fantastic for I guess just a handful of times of doing it. Yeah, you did really good. So for everyone out there, Sporkman's channel on Friday, you'll be able to hear from Cody once again, and I'm sure that he'll have another set of questions ready for him that he'll be more than happy to answer.
And there we go. A nerd and over 30. There he is. That's the person who put out a video earlier today for me. Thank you very much. He's in chat.
Oh, he's here? Sweet.
Yeah, I made it
all
easier.
Right.
Thank you.
I will follow that channel as well. Well, I want to thank all three of you. I mean, Cody, you've been our man of the hour, and you have just I already knew this was going to be great just based on how passionate you are, but you are an excellent salesman for the value and the importance of this comic and what it means. And I'm more excited now than I was before. POTUSThump, thank you. You did some great 1-2 action questions with me. You really helped this conversation move forward. Dollar Bin Reviews, thank you. You've added some neat perspectives. So I've done live streams before, but I've never kind of tried to manage a live stream with multiple people on it. So this was a neat kind of first-time experience for me, and I appreciate all three of you joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for this platform and all the love, everybody. It's been great. It's been great to meet and talk with everybody here.
It's been so roller coaster of emotions. It's great.
Love it.
Fantastic. I guess if any last calls for important last words or anything you need to leave people with before we say goodnight. All right. Cody, I'll let you have the last word since you're the man of the hour. If you have anything else you'd like to leave this with.
Well, mainly that I love this community. It does not deserve half of the flack it gets. It doesn't deserve probably any of it. And just don't let any of the feelings being put out there stop you from making what you want to have happen. If it can happen for this guy in the middle of nowhere, and with the amount of experience I've had, it can happen for most anybody. And I find that beautiful, and I'm sure that this community will continue to rally among great projects and continue to push them forward.
Excellent. Well, with that, I will update my description with all relevant links to other live streams and channels who will have upcoming work for our boy Jack Irons. So I just want to say that I love you guys. and I will catch you later.